Welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How is everybody doing tonight? Let's give a shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to the party, even though you missed the party. Don't worry, you will still very much have a good time, but make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it, so hit that subscribe button. You will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. Really quick, a big thank you to the sponsor of the stream, my6shirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. All right. What is good? Let's party. So we were supposed to do this stream on Monday, but after the Crowder PBD podcast came out, I was like, oh, we gotta do that. But I still wanted to come back to all of this. And, as you saw in the thumbnail, Nick Fuentes was on with JustPearlyThings. So we got some clips here. We're not going to go through, a whole bunch of stuff. Just the clips that they put on YouTube. Just the good stuff. So let's dive right in. The first clip is from when he was on a panel with a bunch of the girls, like the normal show, but the rest is just them one-on-one, and you get a much better idea of what he's thinking and where Pearl is coming from, and asking the questions that people kind of want to know. We got Divine and Rod in the building. We got Alex in the building, and he's back. Oh, welcome, guys. While everybody comes in, let's check out this fun little clip on the panel. As always, if you cannot hear the video, please let me know, even though I did check it on my phone.
Yeah, I think that women are very fickle, and I think they get shacked up, and then they...
We good there? Well, I'm fixing the this thing. Let me know. All right.
They just change their mind, about a lot of things, which is why...
Oh, struggle streaming early.
Divorce just should not be on the table. I think that people should get married, stay married forever. I also think that...
prison.
They did not like that.
Is that women, it also really doesn't even matter too much who you marry. I think that women and men... we're all really the same. There's too much choice. There's too much shopping around. Like, I want this, I want that. It's like
the one with the flower in her hair looking good.
Confusing.
There are quality people, and then there's people that are not quality. And those are really like the main categories that matter. And the thing is, I feel like a long time ago, people get married and they get what they get. That's your husband, that's your wife. Well, you got to make this work somehow.
Yeah.
People figure out a way to make it work. Yeah. Now that when there's divorce on the table, people go, I don't know. Do I love him? Do I not love him? Am I?
So Divine Rod's asking who this Nick guy is. Something about cats. I don't know anything about cats, but he is a self-avowed, I believe, Christian nationalist is the way he describes himself. Not a white nationalist, a Christian nationalist. I think he's going to get into the differences there. But one of the clips is specifically titled, "Is Nick Fuentes racist?" And I guess we gonna find out. I don't know too much about Nick. I know, what he has said in context of conversations with Sneeko and with Destiny. He seems to be of an interesting but internally logical mind. It doesn't seem like the positions he lands on make a lot of sense, but it also seems like the as long as you believe the things that he believes, which I don't believe, then the positions that he has do logically follow. But we're gonna get a lot into that.
Am I out? What am I going to do? Whatever. When divorce isn't on the table, people think differently. And I feel like the fights aren't as vicious because it's like, you got to get back together. And when they're separated, people are looking to negotiate. They're talking to their friends. When divorce is on the table, it almost sows the seeds of the divorce because it's an option.
That's not a bad point. That's not a bad point. Very, as I said, Christian nationalist, super Christian. He is a virgin who calls himself an incel. I don't know if maybe he'll get into that. But that idea of, well, there's always an avenue out is going to change the nature of the relationship. Now, is it as strong as sowing the seeds of divorce or just because it's there? Maybe.
Divorce is almost inevitable if it's on the table because of the nature of women. So I don't know. I think in a lot of cases, some women don't have kids. Some women, they're just fickle. But
I really
that's the problem.
I really, really wish you hadn't have
That one. She is
started and finished that with fickle, because all of that is actually so fucking true.
Oh, thank you, Pearl. Pearl, thank you so much for censoring this.
Like I said to you earlier, is like if you've got a plan B, then plan A is less likely to.
Plan A is less likely.
Yeah.
Like actually succeed. But you're absolutely right. But you've got to consider the fact that there are marriages out there which really shouldn't stay together.
Yeah.
Like what?
For like abusive and really horrific circumstances.
Then
right?
they got to separate, but not divorce.
Ooh, interesting.
Does it
Tell me
mean
why.
they can't get remarried?
Ooh, interesting. Why?
Because it would be a very perverse incentive if a woman could just get divorced as long as it's on the table. When we talk about women and they talk about abuse, let's be honest. Women say that everything's abuse. If they're not getting punched in the face, they say, well, he's gaslighting me. He said this
I'm not saying it. He is.
mean thing to me.
I have
it can't be on the
trauma.
table. Yeah.
I can't believe you said that.
Guys, we are definitely getting demonetized, and ain't no review in the world going to overturn a Nick Fuentes video. So, just saying.
So if you can leave and get remarried, women will do
Why would
that.
you
That's
stay?
why, and this is a Catholic teaching, people can be separated, but they can't go then and get
I
remarried.
love what you're saying. I hate how you say it.
Yeah.
Isn't that that is such a that's exactly. Look at all of the masculine role models, for better or worse. You have your Nick Fuentes, you have your Sneeko, you have your Andrew Tate, you have your Kevin Samuel. These people, what is it that the women always have a problem with these guys? Not what they're saying. What is she saying? You can see it right there. I love what you are saying. I hate how you say it.
Why is that?
I don't like it's really inconsiderate of really extreme cases.
Is it though? Ron says at the same time, women love their hybristophilia.
What?
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah, like
We're not
It just
talking
is.
about exceptions. We're talking about the rule.
yeah, and like that's what I mean. Like I love what he's
That's
saying.
just so
Yeah, that's what I mean when I'm talking about DV and stuff like that. That's the norm. That's the general thing that divorce is used for, right?
it's such an impractical.
I have a
Yeah.
story for you. I have a story. So my
Oh.
grandma, she had 13 children. Yeah, Irish, and she was also Catholic. She didn't believe in divorce, right? And she was so committed to the marriage that my grandpa had a side chick. You know what I mean? Yeah. and he actually left the family to go be with the side whatever. And she didn't believe in divorce so much that she prayed to God. She said, God, please bring us back together. Like fix this marriage. The side chick died.
Wow. Oh,
Grandpa came home.
Yo, I did not see that come.
And look, they were married like 50 years. She was like the most Catholic lady ever. Never held it over his head. They worked it out.
There's so many people that work it out after infidelity because it doesn't have to be the end of a relationship at all. But like, I genuinely want to make sure that we're not excluding people that are in relationships that really.
I'm gonna
shouldn't be.
exclude them. Yep,
Fuck
exclude.
that.
Yeah, as soon as she's like, I don't think we need to exclude people. Well, are we talking about those people and their situations? Then they're excluded from this conversation.
Fuck
And
that.
I'll add to that.
Excluded
The-
just so we can have a conversation without talking about every
Exactly.
exception.
The only time that a relationship can work out again afterwards if there's
Yeah.
been infidelity.
Does anybody know this guy's name? I want to say Sterling Cooper, just because I've seen him around in the Manosphere, in the Red Pill, doing the things. I think he was on Fresh and Fit, but I don't know who this guy is, and I've seen him in different places.
Is if the guy is infidel.
Say again.
Am I using that word
I
correctly?
realized that.
The only time it can work out is if the guy is stepping out and getting some strange on the side. If the woman does it, then the relationship is over
Yeah.
because she doesn't want to be with that.
Haram!
Oh, come on.
Guy in the first place. A man can love a woman, truly, deeply love a woman, and he can still have sex with a totally different woman just because. Because men have this insatiable need for variety. It's in our DNA. We can't get rid of that. But a woman will, if she steps out of the relationship, then there is something fundamentally wrong with the relationship, and there's something fundamentally wrong with how she views her man. She doesn't respect him. She's not in love with him anymore. There's a reason that she stepped out and slept with a different guy.
So, in those matriarchs, the 4 million people strong ones, they've got rooms dedicated for the women to have side pieces.
And your point is what? Hey, we got Trey Williams in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So the world would be 1,000% shocked with the amount of second families men had in the 50s and 60s. 1,000%. That was one of Kevin Samuel's big things. He was like, "Do you think your grandfather didn't have a side piece?" And he's like, "No, I don't think so." Probably did, but there were rules. You don't bring, you don't make a fool of me. Don't go anywhere where people can see you. Then that's not in DMAC, but all right. Don't bring any STDs and don't bring any children. As long as you follow those rules. Like I'm not interested in that kind of lifestyle, but for those who are, that's the rules.
It's a whole thing.
Haram.
Is that
gross?
Right.
Why would you want to live in a community where your mom has a room to hook up with her side piece?
What about where the dad does
Then you
it?
don't know how. Well,
I personally.
I don't want my dad to be like that. That's horrible.
Personally, I would prefer.
You don't want your dad to
Could
be
you
like
stop interrupting me? All right, thank you. Personally,
Got
I would
him.
prefer them to just, be with each other. That's how I grew up. That's nice. But I cannot help but acknowledge that there's been many societies that have stood the test of time that have done it the other way with multiple wives, and that only 40% of men have reproduced historically, where 80% of women have. So it's always been 2 women to 1 man. So who am I to tell the world how not to be?
Nobody. Real quick, guys, after a conversation about moderation and the fact that everybody here has a wrench except Alex, I'm going to be taking away all of the wrenches except for divining rod. I'm giving one to Harley and Dan Jensen because they are the most consistent people as well as the biggest contributors, so I know I can trust them. Don't take it personally. Over the next month, I'm going to be paying attention to who's doing things like reminding people to like the video, like, comment, subscribe, go to the Discord, that kind of stuff. Making sure that, if there's trolls, like Dr. Evil Genius was really good the other day with somebody getting a little too, spicy. That's the type of stuff I'm looking for. So if you care, maybe you don't, but I realized I made the mistake of kind of just handing out wrenches and not really telling you guys what I expect. So I am going to be after this show. Nobody except those 3 are going to have wrenches, and you may very well get it back in a few weeks if that is something you are interested in. Just do what moderators do. Trey says, I dated a girl who would always tell me she wanted her she always told me she wanted her man to treat her like her dad does, or her dad does her wife, forgetting the fact that he cheated on his wife and had her. Well, this goes in line with what Kevin Samuels was talking about. The fact that her dad cheated doesn't mean that he treated her mom badly. Just because he cheated on her doesn't mean he treated her badly. I'm sure this is way before the idea of open relationships were, as ubiquitous as they are now. But like you were just saying, it's been like that forever. So exactly the point is that this doesn't mean that you're a bad man. This doesn't mean that you are, certainly doesn't mean you're a bad father. And it doesn't mean you're a bad husband either. It doesn't mean you're a great husband, but they're not mutually exclusive. No, we all miss Seabass. He'll be back.
So
just
I think everyone should do what the hell they want to do, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
No, I think infidelity's wrong in all cases. You're one flesh. Marriage is a sacred institution. It's 2 people joining together.
I agree.
And you know, and you have to also think about it from the perspective of children. And I don't know, I think it was you, Pearl, what children want to look at their parents and think about their dad stepping out on their mom or their mom stepping out on their dad. It's terrible. And if you want to live a promiscuous lifestyle, I think you just shouldn't get married.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, not that I also think that nobody should live a promiscuous lifestyle, because actually marriage, matrimony is what it's called, that comes from the Latin prefix matr, is about motherhood. It's mother. So matrimony is about motherhood. It's about having children. And
so we're
the only way
learning.
to have children, the only moral way is mother and father staying together, raising them, and faithful to each other. And that's it. So, I mean, I agree. But by the way, I do agree with you that female infidelity is worse because of like what you described. But they're both a mortal sin. Yeah. And both shouldn't be done.
Surprisingly agree with you there.
Yeah, no,
Let's go.
Me too. I was like, yeah.
Okay.
That's the second time, surprisingly, because what, a man can't say things that are honest and put women in the spotlight and also be correct. They're surprised by that.
Hey,
Can we talk about the abuse thing?
Okay.
Because the other thing is, women will never talk about them hitting the guy first. How many? They said there's a lady here in the UK that she worked at women's shelters, and she said 80% of the time the women were equally, if not more, abusive than the men.
Yep.
But they'll only talk about the man's part in it.
Yeah. Divine Rod says, had a couple 5-girl harems back in the day.
Haram! Haram! Haram!
I'll say this. Women's attitude vastly changes when their replacement is a phone call away. Yup. It's just a different mentality. I mean, cheers to you. But what is she talking about here? They never talk about, they only talk about the man's part. And I do think that there is a reason for that. I'm not sure it's a good reason, but the reason, obviously, is that men typically have much more ability to do damage, and so that's where that's why that's the focus. But everything has a cause and effect. Just I don't know why, but Pearl just really grinds my gears. Her voice is so annoying. Well, I mean, most of this is going to be Nick, so that's the good part.
Why is that?
Because men are doubly more likely to commit violent crimes.
Violent crime? Yes. Violence within a relationship? No. Absolutely not. You will find the highest instances of DV in one type of couple. Those are lesbian couples. They will tee off on each other. Gay dudes rarely even fight. In comparison. But in comparison, rarely.
Like, that's the stats.
Is it though?
Against other men.
I'm not going to say anything. I can't
But
say it. That's a fact. Like, men are doubly more likely to commit violent
they're also
crime.
more likely to be the victim of violent crime. So what does it
In
matter?
the relationship,
So, I'm saying
anyway.
when it comes to abusive relationships,
Divine Rod, you realize that Trey and Darshan are two different people, right? Just because they're both black doesn't mean they're the same people.
more likely than not, they're hitting each other.
No, I'm going to jump in straight here.
Both of them.
And jump in. So mind you, it's publicly acknowledged that I was previously in an abusive relationship. So for you to automatically state that, for me, there wasn't any physical violence, but abuse, I feel like we have to openly, since we have this platform, discuss that there's very many different types of abuse. There's emotional, there's coercive control, financially, very different types.
That's not what people talk about unless they specifically are talking about that. When they just say the word abuse, they are talking about you getting punched in the face. If you want to specify financial abuse or wage theft or anything like that, then it is your responsibility to note that when you're saying the word abuse. Because you know that when people say the word abuse, there is an image that comes to mind.
It is a gendered crime. Women are far more likely to experience abuse than men will. If we're speaking about violence out on the streets, of course.
Right, because they're the only ones in those lesbian relationships.
that's completely different. Women are not out fighting and knifing each other down. But in the home, women, especially in the pandemic, it has increased. And
It's like 70%,
no,
right?
Yeah, it increases.
one-sided. Most abusive relationships are mutual, meaning
But
they're
like
No,
wait, let
physical,
me
what
finish.
type of
They're
abuse?
they're usually hitting each other. When it comes to one-sided abuse, it's more likely that the woman's hitting the man and he's not retaliated. And often it goes unreported because there are cases where they even call the police on a woman and they'll still arrest the man.
But where have you got your
Of course. Where have you got your statistics? I didn't really even know.
statistics?
I didn't even really know where my statistics were coming from. I was kind of just speaking out my booty hole, but you have to have your stats ready to go.
From? That's my question to you.
They go over it.
statistics-
That's always the biggest cope. If you are not bringing stats that you are, like she brought out stats, but she didn't know them. The only time you are justified to bring up statistics in a debate, in a conversation like that, specifically if it's not an organized debate, where you would be expected to have sources and stuff like that. Don't bring up where did you get that from, unless you have some source that is going to refute what has been said, regardless of what the source is. Then now we're having a conversation about the strength of the sources. But if you have no source and they have no source, where's your source? Well, where's your source?
I agree with Twitter.
Cassie,
Yeah.
no, it's not Twitter. It's Cassie J has a whole documentary that goes over it.
That's not a fact. That's just
no,
a
but
documentary.
She pulls up the studies in it. So
That's
you
fine.
can see it.
Subjective studies.
It's not a.
See the cope? The cope. Well, where's your studies? Okay, we got studies. Well, are they good studies? No. Well, do they agree with what I say? No. Okay, well then they're biased. They're subjective. This is sign language at its finest. Shame, insult, guilt, and what? The need to be right. Trey says abuse has become such a gaslighting word because women put everything under abuse. Like, I truly don't understand what is financial abuse. I mean, I think that's just what stealing is. Like, that's just a fancy word or a fancy phrase for stealing.
Well, but I want to weigh
Can we
in.
get the
All right, so let's we got Rufus in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome. So my friend's wife busted him in the head with a metal baseball bat, called the cops himself, and still went to jail and charged with DV. That is horrible. And you hear stories like that all the time. Why? It's because the legal system is set up to automatically try to protect the woman, regardless of who calls, regardless of whose face is all bloodied. Hey, let's just take the man and figure it out later. That's easier for them. That the system works easier to put men into it. So why make extra paperwork? Because if it's a woman, now we got a whole thing. This might get to the press. This and that. This is what they do. All right, so this is going. So now we're moving on from there was a bunch of clips from the panel, but a lot of it was just the girl squawking and whatever. This is a little bit more the one-on-one conversation between the two of them. And Trey, I promise, it's mostly Nick. So we're good.
So you're not even against immigration all the way, but you're only for immigration when it benefits America. So if there's a shortage in an industry or something, and you feel like it's going to completely change what.
Who thinks that he would have worn that camo jacket before meeting Ye?
The country is. If we go from it being 80 to 90% white and having one set of values and culture to the opposite. And you said it's on track to doing that?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're on track. By 2100, it's going to be like 30% white in America. And people don't really realize what that's going to look like. It's going to be a fundamentally different place. And, I'm using these words precisely. It doesn't mean inferior. It doesn't mean, because that's what they always say. It's like, oh, you don't like these people, or, oh, you hate them, or you think they're worse. It's like, it's just different. One of the things
that's cool. Because if you are going to say that one thing is one thing and one thing is a different thing, then unless they are identically equal, which you are not making the argument for because you want one over the other, if they were identically equal, then you wouldn't care because they would be identical. So you are saying one is better. Let's get that straight. I'm willing to hear out your arguments as a non-white person, but that is absolutely what you're saying. The country would be better, Nick Fuentes believes, if it were all white or more white or whatever. Let's not get that twisted.
The most profound thing is that we love as human beings, we love our homes. You know, that's.
Hey, where is it? We got Plastic Face in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Aesthetic upgrade. That's what Ye will do for you. The fashionista. Welcome to the party, Plastic Face.
That's what the Odyssey is about. That's what great literature is about, is we love our people, we love our homes, we love where we're from. And can you really say that when America is transformed in this way, that it'll still be our home? It'll still be like the way it is?
Yes. I'm willing to hear out why you think it won't be. But yes, I think that for a long time, the percentage of white people in this country has been going down because of, immigration, because of race mixing, all these different things. I kind of think America's better than it's ever been in a lot of ways. I mean, certainly there's issues, but certainly none of them are due to the fact that there's not enough white people.
It's not. And that cultural erasure is happening everywhere in America. You know, like Little Italy in Chicago, which is where my great-grandfather was a shoemaker and everything. It's completely different now. It's been transformed.
Yeah, because we have slaves in whatever country that make Nikes. So we don't really need shoemakers. What are you talking about, bro?
And I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing. All this, when people say that's being diversified, there is a benefit there. I'm not going to stand here and say that diversity doesn't have benefits. Like, there is the good food, but it doesn't come without a cost.
And the good producer.
And a great producer. And a charming producer. But,
let him in, whoever the new president is. Let him in. I'll let you on my show.
Yeah.
Trey, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'll campaign.
Yeah, just don't tell them that they know me. You need to put on a watch list or something.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know. Let's not.
This guy's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
We don't like him.
Yeah.
I think the thing is with Pearl is she doesn't really offer much except the platform itself. She's not a bad person. She's not a dumb person. She just doesn't have much to offer in terms of value in the context of watching a YouTube video, besides access to other people that we want to hear from. She has the money to set up the infrastructure to get, 20 pieces, 50 pieces of content out a day, and your channel's going to grow if you can do that. But if she was just, her starting out like everybody else, just on their laptop and recording videos and having to edit it themselves and doing the thumbnails and all of that stuff, there's no way that she would be this big. And that's not hate. I mean, that's just facts. Like, I appreciate that, she's providing this conversation for us, but there's a reason people feel this way. And in my opinion, that's it.
We don't.
But it gets to the idea, even with this, even when we talked about with the economics argument of it, capitalism is based on creative destruction is one of the terms, which is that when innovation comes, it destroys what existed previously. Mm-hmm.
To make room for what's better.
Model T destroyed the horse industry, the horse.
Are you guys riding horses or y'all driving cars? Let me know.
Situation. And the same is true of immigration. It's like, and to a lesser extent, but it's an analogy. Yeah, these rapid transformations are happening, and what has changed? It's destroying the way things used to be. And you can have a little bit of that, but you can't have a lot of it.
Why? If he doesn't have a reason why, then all he's doing is just saying things. Why? You can have a little of that, but you can't have a lot of it rapidly. Okay, that's your claim. Why? Let me wait for this to come in. Rufus is saying, so he sees progress as destroying. I think he does. I think in general, we have to remember he's like 24, 26. So his idea of progress is going to be directly tied to progressives and how progressives have been in the last 5 to 7 years. Because even if you're 16 and you're paying attention to politics. You just don't know enough about the world to know your place. I mean, like maybe somebody has been, but generally speaking, I don't care how much you read. At 16 years old, even if you started that early, you don't know what's going on, at least for a little while. So I mean, I do think, Rufus, this is the case. But I understand where that's coming from, because progressives have, gone buck wild. And if that's all you've ever seen from the left and all you've ever seen from people who call themselves progressives, I mean, kind of makes sense.
Rapidly.
So this is, again, you said you can have a little bit, but you can't have a lot of it rapidly. And unless that is a claim, so he needs to back that up.
Every sector, which is what's happening technologically, economically, in terms of the demographics,
What do you mean
culturally.
Okay, it's happening. Why is it a bad thing? Or why can't it happen rapidly?
That's what's happening.
That's what's happening in America. What's happening is a rapid pace of change in everything. Like human beings 100 years ago were on a horse and buggy, and everybody believed in God, and when women wore veils in church. And look at what it's like today.
You could get a virgin bride.
Yeah, for real. Now it's not that way. So it's this.
Oh, so you're saying that everything's changing too fast.
Yeah.
In your point of view, and you think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, because that's what being a conservative is all about.
Well, because I'm kind of torn. On one hand, I do feel like you should adapt with the market.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, is technological advancement always a bad thing? I don't necessarily think it's bad.
Nope.
But I can see what you're saying when you
nothing has been more or nothing has allowed more people to get out of poverty than technological progress. So I get what he's saying in the sense that we are biological creatures, and the rate of our biological evolution, which I don't even know if he believes in as a Christian nationalist, whatever. But the rate of biological evolution is way, way slower than the rate of technological evolution. That I agree with. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it? I don't really know if it's a good or bad thing. I think there's pros and cons, but it's kind of just a thing.
Complete shift in values.
Well, it's about all of it. It's about fundamentally what being a conservative is about, is saying that, because liberals will say, oh, conservatives are superstitious, they're ignorant, they're like, that's their big argument against religion, is that it's superstition and it's sort of like vestigial, meaning it's sort of like outlived its purpose. What a conservative would say broadly is that the society that we have because of those traditions. Like,
I agree with you. We have the society we have because of those traditions. That doesn't mean that those traditions, and specifically the truth claims, the beliefs, are still relevant. The traditions, the values, all of those things, and you guys, I'm like a broken record with this stuff. All of those things do not need to be tied to the truth claims of your religion. I agree. The values and traditions and community building and all of that stuff is what led to the most advanced and in my opinion, best society, best country in the world. That doesn't mean God exists.
Like the rituals, the things we used to do.
All great.
Maybe
all great.
People don't understand why we had them or why they worked.
Okay, so now we have two things that we need to know. Why can it happen too rapidly? And why we have them and why they worked out. So those are the two questions on the table that he's brought up. He's made claims about. That he's just said. He just thrown them out there without any evidence, without any backing, without anything.
But they worked by virtue of the fact that they survived and they're still here.
Sure.
And that's not to say that we shouldn't change, because you do sometimes have to change. And I agree with you. I think technological progress is a good thing sometimes, but I don't believe in this religion of progress that it's always a good thing. Bigger, faster, more diverse.
Because then it's like,
okay, I can agree with that. And, that's very much in line with the idea of social values being eroded very quickly. So I understand where he's coming from. I just don't know if the connection that he's making is as strong as it really is. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Yeah, let me know. You guys are quiet. Where were you at with this guy so far?
It's like, what, you're doing things inefficiently for no reason?
Well, it's not for no
So I'm
reason.
just thinking,
Isn't it though? Isn't it though?
I'm just thinking of this in my personal life, in
Mhm.
my business. Why would I
Mhm.
do something the slow way? In
Work
the name
harder.
of, in the
Work harder, not work smarter, not harder. Close.
name of what? Culture?
Here's why. Check this out. It's like
I love how he's about to tell somebody who has 1.3 million subscribers on YouTube, and he's banned from everything, why she needs to do things differently. As much as everything I said about her is completely true, in my opinion, she's still balling out on this. She is successful. She is doing exactly what she set out to do.
you look at a smartphone.
Right.
Smartphone is the most amazing tool that mankind has ever invented, like without a question.
Sure.
But look at what it's doing to young people now. Like, could you think of a reason why
Is that the smartphone, or is that specific applications within the smartphone? If you don't have social media, what is the danger of a smartphone?
better to not give a kid a smartphone until they're like an adult and give them a dumb phone instead? Or even why you might use a dumb phone as an adult for that matter. Because smartphones, while they can be very effective, they also can be very addictive, and there's all kinds of problems associated with it.
So can religion.
And so, it's something about the old way is the way that survived. And again, that's not
Did it even survive though? How many people are actually Christian in the way that, people were Christian 100 years ago? Christians these days are like, yeah, I believe in God, and it's just God is love, and I'm spiritual, and I have sex, and I get tattoos, and I wear all these different. You don't follow the Bible. You just believe in this nebulous idea of God, and you follow, the things that you like in the Bible, and ignore the things that you don't. So let's be honest here.
It's a heuristic. It's not something that applies, or it's not an ironclad law that says, we can never change. And it's not about rigidity. It's about
how else did they get the pyramids, Rufus?
saying that we ought to be very judicious and careful about the changes that we make and the decisions we make about. And
again, I can agree with that. We should be judicious about the changes that we make. We should be very deliberate about them. That doesn't mean that all the choices have been made without that scrutiny. Some of them certainly have. But you're acting as if progress in general, technology in general, suffers from this problem, and that's just not the case. Byron said the attack on attention plan is a huge problem. Attack on attention plan? I don't know what that is. I'm over 2 at you tonight, brother. I don't know what you're talking about. You gotta educate me. What are we talking about?
Across the board, it's like capitalism, globalization, secularization, liberalization. It is fundamentally changing society. And you look around and we're in London right now. Do we love the society that all of that is produced? Because this is the epicenter of it. And it's like, when you put all that together, does this create a heaven on earth? Is this the best place in the world?
Why do you say London's the epicenter of that?
Well, because London was the seat of the British Empire, and they were behind the liberalization of liberalism. America is the product of Britain.
But I'm just thinking, who decides what technology goes forward and what doesn't?
The people, and the people have spoken that they like their iPhones.
The society.
Okay, how would you do that?
Through the government. That's
right,
why.
So then you have politicians dictating what's allowed and what isn't. I just don't know how you would do that in an effective way.
That's the question.
Yeah, because
that's
then
the
it's
trick.
like, what are the politicians God? You're going to tell me I can't use my smartphone?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. That's a valid point, but that is really, that's kind of the tension.
So while we're moving over here, Trey says, I think we can make an argument that our society has been on the steady decline, a steady morality decline by each generation. I mean, absolutely. But it's something about what he was talking about and saying that, this is happening very, very rapidly, even though you were bringing up like in the 50s, your grandfather probably had other families. That was socially. That was, it was fine, but you didn't talk about it. You had your privacy. You had, stuff that you would do on your own. Now it's just different because everybody feels like they have to, air their dirty laundry. And, I think that changes how we view relationships, how we view, the opposite sex, or whoever you're interested in, and all that kind of stuff. But definitely, at least in the last 2 generations, like since I mean, look at the difference between your typical Gen Xer and your typical Zoomer. They are not, they don't have much in common at all. All right. So this one is Nick Fuentes, a racist. Let's see.
So you're not even against immigration all the way, but you're only for immigration when it benefits America. So if there's a shortage in an industry or something.
Exactly.
And
That's fair. That's fair. 100%. I don't think that people are going to say that that's racist. I don't think that that's racist. That may be nationalist and say, I only care about America, but hey, I only care about America. Get the F out of Ukraine.
you feel like it's going to completely change what the country is if we go from it being
That part I
80 to
disagree.
90% white and having one set of values and culture to the opposite.
See, that's the conflation. I don't think that by having less white people, the values themselves need to change. They might, but as long as the values themselves are baked into the American identity rather than the religious identity or the political identity of one side, then we don't have a problem. So what could possibly be the solution? I've never thought about this before. Maybe we want to stop gatekeeping morality from the church, and we want to start making sure that people who have no belief in God or religion have access to learn about these traditions and values and rituals that you Christians and Muslims and religious people in general value so much. Now they have an avenue to live that out as well. Because I'm sure many of you Christians would have a lot in common in terms of how society should work and gender roles and stuff with Muslim people, but they don't believe the same thing as you. Or Jewish people, but they don't believe the same thing as you. Or the Christian next to you in church, they don't believe the same thing as you either. But point being is that by creating a society where good equals religion, and religion has this qualifier that cannot be met by some people. You are gatekeeping morality. And unless you are willing to go through the level of study and confusion and hurt that I have, and a lot of other people who are atheists who have found a moral structure beyond religion, which most don't, then you're going to find this crazy leftist behavior. I mean, you can tell me I'm wrong, but that's the world we're living in. Trey says, well, one of the reasons he gets called a white supremacist is because he seems to equate the morality with the white people more than he does the religion. Agreed. Let's see if he follows that up.
And you said it's on track to doing that?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're on track. By 2100, it's going to be like 30% white in America.
He still has not said why that is going to change the morality. And again, I could understand it better if he was tying it to the religion, because again, so many of you guys already do that. But he's talking about a skin color. And yeah, Rufus is exactly right. All people and cultures basically want the same things. Very different ways about going about it, but everybody just wants to be happy. Everybody wants to provide for their family, and by and large, be left the hell alone. That's all people want, except leftists and trans activists.
And people don't really realize what that's going to look like. It's going to be a fundamentally different place.
That's the third time he said that without saying how or why.
And you know, I'm using these words precisely. It doesn't mean
Are you, though?
inferior. It doesn't mean, because that's what they always say. It's like, oh, you know, you don't like these people, or oh, you hate them, or you think they're worse. It's like, it's just different. You know, one of the things, the most profound thing is that we love as human beings, we love our homes. You know, that's what the Odyssey is about. That's what great literature is about, is we love our people, we love our homes, we love where we're from. And can you really say that when America's transformed in this way, that it'll still be our home?
Yes. Yes, sir, I can.
Still be like the way it is? It's not.
It might not be, but it's still America.
And that cultural erasure is happening everywhere in America.
And I know they're kind of going over some of the same clips, but this is a different, a different thing.
You know, like Little Italy in Chicago, which is where my great-grandfather was a shoemaker and everything. It's completely different now. It's been transformed. And I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing. All this, when people say that's being diversified, there is a benefit there. I'm not.
Okay, so we agree that there's a benefit there. The only argument then is that the disadvantage would be larger than the benefit. That is the claim that you have put forward, sir. So let's hear it. I'm here with open arms and open ears.
I'm not going to stand here and say that diversity doesn't have benefits. Like, you know, there is the good food, but it doesn't come without a cost.
And the
good food. That's all people who are not white are good for, is the food.
Haram!
This guy.
Producer.
And a great producer. And a charming producer. But
you gotta respect him, though, for at least being open about who he is, because he has a decent amount of followers. There's a lot of people who think this way, and they just keep it to themselves because they know that these are unpopular opinions. At the end of the day, this is America. You're allowed to have whatever stupid opinion you want. You're allowed to have whatever dangerous opinion you want. And it's up to us as other Americans, arguably better Americans, to shoot down that argument, not by silencing him, but by presenting better ideas. And if we can't do that, then we have failed. Not him. We have failed. Yeah, definitely racist. Trey says, so funny that the half Mexican built a platform off crying about his white side being taken away. Bars! What can I say? You 100% right.
You know,
his name is Fuentes.
Let him in, whoever the new president is. Let him in. I'll let you on my show.
Yeah,
I'll campaign.
Yeah, just don't tell him that they know me. You know.
I'm curious how he feels around, like, in an environment like this, a one-on-one discussion with a woman in person, being a virgin, and specifically advertising his incel behavior and that he thinks that that's a virtue. And I wonder how he feels. Because I remember being a virgin and just like being around women and like not knowing what it was. Like, I mean, I definitely wasn't like some smooth Chad dude, but I wasn't like geeky and like, oh my God, she's so hot. What do I say to her? You're so amazing. Like, I was never like that, but definitely there's a difference in how you feel around women, specifically women who are talking about dating, specifically women. I mean, like, Pearl ain't a 10. But for a virgin, I mean, come on. I don't know. I'm just curious. Ron says, being an American is a mindset first and foremost. You could not speak English and still be a great American. Better if you do, but not required. Fully agree. Fully agree. The difference of cultures and the melting pot idea. I don't know why that conservatives in particular kind of moved away from that, especially now with the type of racism that leftists talk about. You would think that this whole melting pot idea would be that they've pushed aside and said we need to segregate everybody and these people need to have this space and these. The melting pot idea should be something that normal conservatives, he's certainly not a normal conservative, are pushing for. Who agrees with Rufus? All right, we're doing a poll for this one. Is Pearl okay? So that's a. So okay, would you sleep with Pearl if you had to take her out to dinner first? Guys, please don't. Whatever. Yeah. Who agrees with Rufus? Poll is in the chat.
You need to put on a watch list or something.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know. Let's
yeah,
not.
this guy's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
we don't like
50-50.
Yeah, we don't.
50-50.
But it gets to the idea, even with this, even when we talked about with the economics argument of it, capitalism is based on creative destruction is one of the terms, which is that when innovation comes, it destroys what existed previously.
Mhm.
You know, the Model T destroyed the horse
Mhm.
industry, you know, the horse situation.
Again, this is I mean, I know they're kind of retreading, but this is the second time that this has been brought up without any reason as to why that is bad. Again, are any of you riding horses? And if you do you still have a car? And if you do, are you mad about that? Probably not. So I don't understand the horse industry. Like, oh my goodness, you're right. Without the horse industry, like, geez. All right, what do you got? We got 80% would hit. 80% would hit. You got to take her out to dinner first. Whew. Trey says Pearl is for sure 6, but her voice knocks her down to a 4. Fair enough. Drive through a taco. The cankles. No. Fair enough. I didn't specify. I meant a sit-down dinner, but that's why I make them vague, so we can get different interpretations. I like that. I mean, for Taco Bell, I would definitely hit. For Ruth Chris.
And the same is true of immigration. It's like, and to a lesser extent, but it's an analogy. Yeah, these rapid transformations are happening, and what has changed? It's destroying the way things used to be. And
right, like the horses, it's destroyed how that industry worked in America. But again, you have yet to explain why that's a bad thing. I would much rather a car that we literally measure in horsepower, because a horse is 1 horsepower. My car is a POS. It's a Chrysler 200, not even 300. It's got at least 100 horsepower. What are we talking about?
And you can have a little bit of that, but you can't have a lot of it rapidly in every sector.
Okay, so that's what he said before, and that was kind of the end of the clip. Let's see if he gives an answer as to why.
Which is what's happening technologically, economically, in terms of the demographics,
What
culturally.
do you mean that's what's happening?
That's what's happening in America. Is
facts, Rufus.
What's happening is a rapid pace of change in everything. Like human beings 100 years ago were on a horse and buggy, and everybody believed in God, and when women wore veils in church. And look at what it's like today.
You could get a
So is he saying that he thinks that riding horse and buggy and only having to believe in God because you don't have the knowledge to choose that you want to follow this faith, that you don't know any better, and that women can't dress the way they want, is that a good thing in your opinion? It sounds like that's what he's saying. Now, I'm not saying I want some oh, that's what I need. She belongs to the streets. I'm not looking for some 304 who's putting her everything out there, but I certainly stand for her right to do it.
virgin bride.
Yeah, for real. Now it's not that way. So it's this.
Oh, so you're saying that everything's changing too fast.
Yeah.
In your point of view, and you think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, because that's what being a conservative is all about.
Well, because I'm kind of torn. On one hand, I do feel like you should adapt with the market, and it's kind of like, is technological advancement always a bad thing? I don't necessarily think it's bad, but I can see what you're saying when you have a complete shift in values.
Well, it's
what was she going for there? I can see when you have a shift in values. You can see what. Maybe he'll finish it for us. Let's see this.
You're saying when you have a complete shift in values,
then this happens or that happens. That would be the end of the sentence. Let's see if Nick finishes it for her.
Well, it's about all of it. It's about fundamentally what being a conservative is about is saying that, because liberals will say, "Oh, conservatives are superstitious. They're ignorant. They're like that's their big argument against religion, is that it's superstition and it's sort of like vestigial, meaning it's sort of like outlived its purpose." What a conservative would say broadly is that the society that we have because of those traditions, like the rituals, the things we used to do. Maybe people don't understand why we had them or why they worked, but they worked by virtue of the fact that they survived and they're still here. And that's not to say that we shouldn't change, because you do sometimes have to change. And
okay, as long as he's willing to change from religion, then I'm still listening. I'm still on board. I mean, maybe not on board, but I'm open to it. I'm open to hearing what you have to say.
I agree with you. I think technological progress is a good thing sometimes, but I don't believe in this religion of progress that it's always a good thing. Bigger, faster, more diverse.
So I think what he's saying, hearing this the second time, I think what he is referring to is the science and scientism. I just did a video on this week. Definitely check it out if you haven't done so. The thumbnail has like Fauci and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Albert Einstein. It's a great video. But it's about a TED Talk that was taken down because of fear of spreading misinformation, when all it was saying that science is a process. And once we have a society that no longer treats science as a process, but as an answer, aka thinking of scientists as dogmatically correct, then we failed. We have failed. They're talking about the speed of light, and there was a time in the 80s where the speed of light changed, and they assumed that it must be wrong, the calculations or something. And the guy was asking, well, did maybe the speed of light change? And the guy who was talking to her goes, no, we just changed the definition of what the speed of light is, so it's never going to change. That's identical to the situation of Dr. Fauci and the NIH changing the definition of gain of function research to directed evolution. It doesn't change what they're doing by virtue of changing the name. The thing that you're doing is still the same thing. You're just calling it something different.
because then it's like, what, you're doing things inefficiently for no reason.
Well, it's not for no reason.
I'm just thinking of this.
Come on, Pearl. Reusing the same exact thing. All right, let's just get through this one.
This is my personal life and my business. Why would I do something the slow way? In the name of what? Culture?
Here's why. Check this out. It's like, you look at a smartphone.
Right.
Smartphone is the most amazing tool that mankind associated with it. And so, it's something about the old way is the way that survived. And again, that's not, it's a heuristic. It's not something that applies or it's not an ironclad law that says, we can never change. And it's not about rigidity. It's about saying that we ought to be very judicious and careful about the changes that we make and the decisions we make about, and across the board, it's like capitalism, globalization, secularization, liberalization. It is fundamentally changing society. And you look around and we're in London right now. Do we love the society that all of that is produced? Because this is the epicenter of it.
So I think they're just going to go through over the same points here. But the idea is that he is making these claims without giving us the reasons why he is right. This is the failure of somebody who has ideas, who hasn't I guess been around long enough to understand the complexity of other people's ideas and how they play into that. You think what you think, and you think that you think the right thing, so you think you don't need to think any other things. It made sense. Run it back.
That's look at
So this one is Nick Fuentes loves Putin. That's why I put it in the title, because I was blown away by this one.
Putin is a good example. Is why I'm pro Putin. He is clearly the despot of Russia. He's like the king, the dictator of Russia.
I'm not sure I know what a despot is. What does that mean? What is a despot? A despot is a ruler or other person who holds absolute power. Absolute power, typically one who exercises in a cruel or oppressive way. Okay. So what did he say? He's a despot. Okay. So he is a ruler or other person who holds absolute power, typically one who exercises in a cruel or oppressive way of Russia. Okay. Cool.
And a lot of people say, what? I can't imagine living in a country where, it's tyrannical like that.
Guys, I love you so much, but this channel will never grow unless we get more people in the party. So real quick, do me a favor, just takes 2 seconds. The URL right there or the share button, just plaster this all over Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, other YouTube channels. Do whatever you can. Let's get this party popping.
Well, it's actually very similar. Like I've never lived in Russia, but it actually seems quite similar. Like you get arrested in the United Kingdom for saying stuff I say on my show every night for hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the Capitol on January 6th and, which is like an anti-government thing. And I didn't break any laws, but I still got harassed by the government. I got put on a no-fly list. They froze my bank accounts.
Who has seen the Tucker tapes? Oh man, we are I was thinking about covering the actual Tucker tapes and like just actually what he did, but I don't know enough about, a lot of that stuff. So I'm gonna wait for somebody's gonna cover it, whether it's on Joe Rogan or some other podcast. Somebody is gonna cover it that knows a lot more than me, and we'll use that as the conversation of what these release tapes from McCarthy given to Tucker are really going to mean. But if you haven't seen it, check out what Speaker McCarthy released to Fox News. I don't know why they only gave it to Fox News, but it's crazy.
All that.
Oh, so all of that was from the Charlottesville.
No, I was from the Capitol.
Oh shoot! I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
I get
okay.
these events all confused. I'm not okay.
I live in UK and I'm a woman. I don't need to know things about things.
So that's later.
Yes.
Well, we'll get to that. Okay.
Yeah.
But you think a king. So sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So the point is that the level of despotism, the structure of the government doesn't have a lot to do with the level of despotism. In other words, these countries we live in now, which we consider so free, are actually not as free as we really think. Because we talk about like China, social credit score in China, facial recognition, etc. You kind of have a social credit score in America. What you'll find, like me, because what do you get in trouble for in China? Being against the government. Okay, I'm against the government in America. I'm banned from PayPal. I'm banned from having a checking account.
Yeah, but that's not because you're against the government. I'm against the government too. A lot of people are against the government. But you said some wild stuff, boy. You said some wild stuff, and you know it.
I'm put on a no-fly list, etc. It's actually quite similar. And so the point is, what a king does is he eliminates corruption, because a king against these oligarchical interests, the rich billionaires or
So real quick, if anybody doesn't know, an oligarchy is just as opposed to a monarchy where there's one king, then an oligarchy is where there's a couple big players, but they have all the power. And, like this crony capitalism is an oligarchy for sure.
In the former or the post-Soviet Union, you had all these guys that bought off the state industries. You had a dictator fighting against them for power. And well, the dictator won, Putin won. And so now all these powerful groups serve the Russian government. And if you have a good guy like Putin at the head of it, who is trying to bring glory to Russia and protect his people and elevate the standard of living, guess what? Everybody wins. And so the purpose of a king is you got to have a guy who he learns to rule at a young age. He's a master of politics. He's the responsible, accountable person for what goes on in the country.
I will say that it has been, obviously Putin is a big enemy of America. We are in World War III and they want to blow us off the face of the earth. However, this blind support for Ukraine, when we've seen the the Asimov Nazis, we've seen the stuff with Biden and Burisma and Hunter Biden, and it's like, it would be crazy to me that there's so much support for this right after, coming off the heels of Afghanistan, and there's still troops there. I would expect a little bit more critical thinking, a little bit more like, hold on, do we really want to do this again? I mean, I guess people do. I mean, not me, but
everybody has a problem, blame the king. And he is working in the best interest of the nation.
But what if he doesn't represent the people's interests?
Well, then you get like what you have in America.
What do you mean?
You get a government that doesn't represent the people's interest, and then horrible things happen.
Well, but I'm saying, wouldn't the same thing happen with the king?
Well, yeah.
Or couldn't it?
It could.
Yeah.
But the point is
but
that
the difference is,
yeah, what is the point that you're making? I don't understand. He says a lot of things that sound like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen in America. Okay, and we can vote out our politicians. People, don't want to a lot of times, but that's not anything to do with monarchy or oligarchy. That has to do with individual people and their interest in their homeland, and it has to do with the media and all of that stuff. There's nothing to do with the style of government. Right? Am I wrong there?
says in a democracy we can elect them out of office.
There you go.
And you could argue that, okay, we are influenced by the media, right, and special interest groups, but arguably some people say steal an election. However, at the end of the day, it's still your choice who you vote for.
Yeah, but see, the problem is that it doesn't really, that's the idea in theory, and that's part of like this super prison that we live in. What
do you mean super prison?
Like, you can be in a prison, and then you can be in like the country is a prison, and like you're in like a mental prison,
so you can't leave the country. Oh, you can't leave the country because you're on a no-fly list for saying wild stuff. I could leave the country whenever I want. I'm gonna go talk to some prisoners and ask them if they can leave. I wonder what they're gonna say.
which is the idea that like we think we're free, but we're really not. And not like I'm some big freedom fighter or something, but what I mean by that is we don't even understand the extent to which
systematic racism exists. This sounds like a liberal talking point. What are you saying, bro?
Like our government doesn't represent us for the reason that you just said, because everybody has it in their head that, oh, if we don't like the government, we'll just vote them out. And it's like, that's a nice idea, but when have we ever voted out like the bad things that are going on in our country? The Iraq War was very unpopular.
That's a good point. Hey, we got 2B Artistry in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. What did she say? He is he is the one in the super prison, not we. Agreed. Welcome to the party, girl. Glad to have you.
It's still going on. It was unpopular 15 years ago.
I thought it was over. It's still going on.
Still going on. We're still there.
I don't know.
You know?
This is why I say I don't know. I do not understand foreign policy.
You don't seem to understand much about anything, Pearl. I'm sorry. I really do appreciate what you do. Maybe I'm a little butthurt. If I had the money that you had, I would have a channel 10 times the size of yours. Because I'm just better at what I do, at what we do, than you are. You just have the money and the connections.
I mean, they wound it down to a considerable degree. But like in 2008, Obama wins going against the war. So what happened in 2000, what was it? In 2011, he winds it down. 2014, boom, ISIS. ISIS was created by America and Israel. That was the reason why you look skeptical.
No, I'm just...
That's facts. That's straight facts. I don't know the exact timeline and who did what and when, but that is absolutely the case. I believe it was with Syria under Obama that we were funding the rebels just like we're doing in Ukraine right now, and then they turn around and became ISIS.
Just what? ISIS was created by America and Israel.
Yeah.
Okay.
To destabilize Syria and also to keep, in my opinion, to keep us there in Iraq. But either way, it's like, look, the point is, even if okay, maybe that's a little far-fetched, but look.
I don't think that's one of the least far-fetched things that you've said tonight, Nick. That's one of the least far-fetched things that you've said. I'm with that. Definitely America started ISIS. There is no two ways about that.
That is my belief, though. But we were in Iraq, and by the way, under false pretenses. They told us we're there because...
For the nuclear weapons, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And though Saddam has nuclear weapons, and he was responsible for 9/11, all the stuff that wasn't true. And we're there, and we're there. Obama gets elected to pull us out. He pulls us out. And then what happened? Well, they came up with a reason to keep us there, which was ISIS. And, some people believe it's organic or not in 2013. But they came up with another reason to keep us there in perpetuity. Trump gets elected. Basically the same thing. Trump, in the primary debates, says with Jeb Bush, it was a mistake to go into Iraq. You said there were weapons of mass destruction. There weren't any. George Bush should have been impeached. That was treason. He gets elected.
Facts.
Guess what they don't do? Pull out of Iraq. He tried. He tried to pull us out of those wars. And it came down to, in the last few weeks of his first term in 2020, a instruction went out to the generals that said, pull us out of Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, South Korea, Germany. You know what the generals said? No.
They said no. Hey, we got indie film in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome to the party. So not sure where Israel comes in on that one, but under Obama, yes. Saddam did have poison gas, which is a WMD. Did he though? I mean, that wasn't the narrative. As somebody who was a little bit more on the outside, certainly not paying attention. As far as I understand, the particular weapons that were that he was proposed to have just were not there. Whether he had gas or not, I don't know. But definitely, yeah, definitely America. And film goes on to say Trump was working on pulling those troops out of everywhere. Yep. And then Rona happened, which is just happenstance, right? Thank you, Tubi. Come on.
Will not carry out the order. Now, the president's the chief, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He's the head, like he's the supreme leader of the military because he's a civilian, head of the civilian government. The military refused to carry out the order. So it's like, that's just one example of something where it's like, hey, nice idea in a democracy. If you don't like what's going on, you vote, and we all get to make a decision. Well, Americans voted against the Iraq war in 1, 2, 3 elections. And we're still there 20 years later.
And you think that's because of the special interest groups? Like, wouldn't that military officer get fired then?
Oh, no, sweetie, fired. He would get promoted. There's something called the military industrial complex. As an American, you should be very aware that this is a thing. Why would he get fired? For extending a war and getting Raytheon and what's the other big one? All these contracts. This is how it works, honey.
What do you mean?
If he wasn't listening to the commander-in-chief,
who's going to fire him?
The commander-in-chief?
No, because the problem is, well, number one, it was too late at that point.
Right, he was on his way out.
Yeah. And the other thing is, what we found out with the Trump presidency, because the Trump presidency was like, it was like an asteroid hitting democracy because it was a real test. It was like, here's a guy.
That's facts. Whether you love him or hate him, it was like an asteroid hitting democracy. That's a great way to put it.
That was opposed by all of the institutions, the media, the Democrats, Republicans, even Fox News was against him, actually. Everybody was against him, and he won. And that means that, like, they're still counting our votes, and the result of the election was respected, so that's a good sign. But he gets in there, and he was totally sabotaged by his own personnel, by the congressional leadership, by the...
That's one of the biggest criticisms that I have personally of Trump is not being aware of how his cabinet and the people around him were part of the machine. Like his whole thing was, I'm going to drain the swamp. And then he got in there and just, was still Trump, But he, all of the, Fauci was in there. There, what was it? Bolton. I don't remember the names like that. But all of these people, a lot, some who got fired, but some who didn't. Namely Fauci. Facts.
The deep state, the bureaucrats that run the executive branch.
All that.
And at
No,
the
I
end
all
of
of
it,
that.
I don't know. any of
Okay.
this, but
well, like the IRS and the Defense Department, the State Department, all because the executive branch, the president changes, but the people that work in these branches of government,
They stay
most
the
of them,
same.
they stay for life.
And how was he sabotaged by them?
So, like, there was a New York Times article that came out, front page editorial, where a guy said, "I am the deep state. I'm working in the Trump administration.
I am the one who knocks.
And every day I am sabotaging his efforts." So, like, a lot of these guys that work in the departments just weren't carrying out his policies,
Oh.
because they didn't believe in it. They weren't ideologically pro-Trump. So, there's about like 2,000 or 4,000 people that get turned over from administration to administration.
So the president doesn't have as much influence as we think.
Yeah.
And so the people think they're voting in a president, and then we think we have more influence. But if his own administration isn't carrying out what he says to do, how much can he really do?
Exactly.
And that's your point when you're saying, at least with a king,
You know who's in charge.
I mean, fair enough. At least with a king, you know who's in charge. I don't think that's a good argument for having a king over a president. But, to each their own, I suppose. Before we get into this next one, I see a comment coming up here. Debining Ron says, GE, Raytheon, JPL, Boeing, Northrop, all these people live based on the government officials who are, like he was just talking about, the ones who don't get cycled out every few years, who are lifers, and they work for both sides or the one uniparty. And so when you have somebody like Trump who's coming in and, the bull in the china shop thing, they're going to do everything they can to maintain the status quo. And so whatever they can get away with, that's like, Trump wants to do this, nah, F that. Or Trump doesn't want to do this, F that, we're doing it. Then there's not a lot that Trump could have done in at that point. He would have had to preempt that by making sure that he had the right people in those positions in the first place. And that was a huge failure. That is something that I need to hear him talk about before I can support him. I need him to talk about, hey, I messed this up. I didn't know. I'm used to, they were just talking about a king versus a president. I'm used to being the CEO. I'm used to being the one who can call all the shots, right? Coming from all of that. I didn't understand exactly how different it was in government, but now that I've been there, I understand, what I did wrong, and I'm going to do better this time. That is what somebody like me, who went from never Trump to being like, all right, guys, stop making me defend Trump, to like, he's not that bad. That's what I need to hear from to take that final step to be like, okay, I am willing to openly endorse Donald Trump. And I'm just not there yet. And I think a lot of people feel that way.
do you think Kanye could win?
I think you could, yeah.
Do you think they could reconcile Trump and Kanye?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think Trump would?
The egos on those two men are way too big for them ever to reconcile. I don't think that possibly if there is a political reason for them to do it, but I do not think so. Hey, we got the sponsor of the stream. Indie Film with a $20 super chat says, tell Morty that Everett does that, says, woof. I love it. Thank you, Everett. Let's pull this down while we give him. He knows it. Oh, say thank you to Indie Film. Yummy! Thank you so much, brother. Very, very much appreciated to you and Everett does stuff.
I don't know, because he is very vengeful and spiteful and stubborn. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if it worked out a certain way.
How crazy would it be? Would Kanye ever be a VP to Trump?
Nope.
I would.
I don't think so.
Again, same thing. The level of ego between the two of them. I don't even see a Trump DeSantis ticket because of the level of ego there. I mean, certainly Trump's not going to be a VP, but even within that, I don't think that maybe it's more of just the political expediency that if he's not going to be the president, it's better for him to just stay in Florida and then run in 2028. But even still, I don't even see that. And the ego in Ron DeSantis is not even close to Kanye. So I mean, I don't know about that. Myron said they're referred to as the administrative or bureaucracy class in DC. Mutile or futile? I don't know what that word is. So I'm going to assume you said futile. If that is a different word, then let me know what it means. Decade-long players, plus cushy jobs for generals, admins, and such upon retirement. Yeah, all of them who are in the military for their whole lives, then they retire, and then they get the jobs at any of these companies. It's like that's why they call it the revolving door.
So
I don't think Trump would ever be a VP to Kanye.
no, probably
No, he
not.
like it's too much of a ego thing.
Yeah,
Yup.
But I was
exactly.
like, I almost
Yup.
think Kanye. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Yay, I can't. I'm sorry.
Come on.
But I almost think Ye would. It would be so interesting to see both of them on a ticket,
Yeah.
and I think
That would-
Ye would say yes to that before Trump would. I'm not saying I think either of them would, but if I had to put like guess one would before the other, because he could run for president the year after,
Yeah.
couldn't he?
I don't know if I trust the faculties of Ye to really think about it in that context. I think he's either I'm going to be the president or not. I don't think he wants to have this long storied political career for maybe no other reason than I don't think he could handle being in the limelight of the political limelight that long. He's been in the general celebrity limelight for most of his life, but that is very different. That is very, very, very different. There's a lot you can get away with as just a celebrity, as a rapper, that you can't get away with as a president. Even as we've seen with Trump himself, he was beloved by everybody. The Apprentice was one of the most popular shows on TV. But once you get into the political realm, all bets are off.
Yeah, because he's young enough and everything. But no, I mean, Ye, people know he wants to be the president. I mean, there's no campaign. He hasn't announced anything. So I don't have any breaking news on that front. But I think that he is a visionary leader. Like he truly is a visionary, and he's not a politician, so he doesn't know the ins and outs of the political scene or whatever. But he's got ideas that can change the world, and he thinks about politics in a way that makes political people feel stupid. Like he makes me feel stupid.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people can make you feel stupid, but definitely. Sorry, I forgot to add you to the banner. Indie Film, you are in the banner as the sponsor of the stream. Thank you so much once again.
Ask me questions and makes me feel like an idiot.
Right, but that's why you'd almost, because they're both geniuses in different ways. I would love to see them on the same ticket.
They should work together, yeah.
But it's more of, it's almost like an ego thing, like whose ego is gonna.
Yeah.
Because I think both of them would have a hard time being a vice president.
Yeah.
I feel like the notion that both of these are, just geniuses. I don't buy that. They're very good at the things that they have done, for the most part. That does not make you a genius. You can be a brilliant this, that, or the other. You can be a brilliant businessman. You can be a brilliant rapper. You can be a brilliant producer. That doesn't mean you're a genius. And while specifically Kanye was still in his realm of being a rapper producer, then the implication of him being a genius was in the context of making music. In which case, sure, I completely agree with that. But just a genius, period? Genius, full stop? I don't know about that.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think either of them are interested.
It's just, I almost could see Ye, because he could run after, you know?
Right, Trump really couldn't. He's too old.
Yeah, but Ye at least, and that would almost get him in the door where he actually has political experience. Not that he needs it, he could.
That is not how Kanye thinks.
I think he could win either way. I think, entertainers are the new politicians. And I don't think we're really going to see that trend change.
All right, new
Yeah,
poll.
yeah, it was true with Trump. You know,
Mhm.
Trump was an entertainer. So, yeah, I mean,
What's it been like working with Ye outside of that?
it's honestly, it's amazing because the guy is just a force, and people don't realize it, but and I know I don't know any other celebrities, but I imagine other celebrities, I mean, they all do work, but I also
Mhm.
imagine they like to go and party and they like to do the drugs and stuff like that.
Who doesn't? Hey, we got Arturo Parra in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome all the way over from TLA. Thank you so much for stopping by. Happy to start watching your streams now. Happy you are here. Welcome to the party. So I keep wanting to get into live streams, but I keep putting it off. Videos are so much easier. I completely disagree. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The last, 2 or 3 weeks, I've been trying to put out regular videos every day. And I mean, I've been doing it because I'm a baller like that. But oh man, just come on, focus on this beautiful mug here. What are we doing? But just coming and sitting down and having something to react to. Oh, I find that so much easier. But I'm definitely here to, a lot of people have been, may I pat myself on the back, been inspired by the fact that I hate doing anything and everything. And, I like drugs. And still, I've been able to do this with some consistency. So you would be a perfect candidate for the Discord server. The link is in the description. The party rages on 24/7. We're always talking about this kind of stuff, content creation. Definitely check it out. But very, very glad you are here. Welcome to the party. Rufus says, there's no way Kanye doesn't get down on the Ye. I mean, why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he?
Ye is obsessed with
Ye.
everything. Like, he wakes up early and he works all day, like literally 18 hours, barely sleeps, wakes up, and from the moment he wakes up, he's going. Like one time,
hey, we got Arturo joining the Discord. Like I said, guys, we're cutting it off at a certain level. Everybody who's in there is grandfathered in. Everybody who's not is going to have to pay, and you are going to want to. So join up now, like Arturo.
We had just finished. It was a really long day, and I was exhausted. I was on my way back to the hotel, and before I walked through the door of my hotel, he calls me, and he goes, "Hey, what time are you waking up tomorrow? How long you need to sleep?" He goes, I'm like, I don't know, 6 hours.
See, this is the dare I say ignorance of just a young person. We know that Ye is bipolar, and that's not a dig. We just know that is true. So for somebody to be obsessed with something and then want to work from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to sleep, and right before they go to sleep, they're thinking about who is what they're going to do, and all that just sounds like a manic episode from somebody who has bipolar. That doesn't sound necessarily like somebody who has an endemic work ethic. And I'm not saying he doesn't, because clearly, pretty much everything he's done so far, except for this, he's been fantastically successful. But the notion that this is all because he's such a hard worker, I feel like is ignorance, just from a young guy who has never seen that. I don't know. Do you guys agree with that? Do you disagree? I feel like that might be a controversial statement. But do you think Kanye is really that hardworking, or you think that what Nick specifically has seen is more about bipolar than anything else?
He goes, okay. I woke up, I think like 6.5 hours later. He had called me 15 minutes before. Literally called me 6 hours after I hung up the phone, because maybe he went to bed for a little while.
Maybe he was experiencing a manic episode.
And he was like, I'm be at your hotel in 15 minutes. That's when he picked me up and we went to InfoWars and we did Alex Jones.
Oh, yeah, and that appearance was certainly not a manic episode. Oh, Yahoo! He brought a net and a Yahoo to Alex Jones. If you make Alex Jones look normal on his own show, you might want to take a look in the mirror because there is something going on with you. Hey, we got our resident fact checker, Holly Rose, in the building. Let me give you that moderator here. Like I said, between the only people, well, I guess if other people show up, Harley, Dan Jensen, and Dividing Rod are the three moderators now. And I messed up by not telling you guys what I expect. And I just want to, especially as we grow, moderators, I expect you to, just make sure people are following the very loose rules of be respectful, attack ideas, not people. Remind people to like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. You've seen YouTube, you know how it works. If that's something you're interested in, doing it, and do it, and I'll notice. If not, then just don't.
So it's literally these like 18-hour days, doesn't stop. Even like with Mar-a-Lago, we had a super long day that Monday, the night before. We woke up at the crack of dawn the next day, so barely slept, flew to Miami, drove to Mar-a-Lago, did the dinner, got on a private jet, flew back to LA. Then we got back to LA, we went to Ye's hotel room and talked for another 3 hours. Yeah. Like, and then we went and then started again the next day early again. So the work ethic is nuts. And the thing is, we're in his office and he's doing everything all at once. So we're at a table doing politics. And then he's got all these clothes on the floor, and he's got his seamstresses and his designers. And so we'll go.
I completely agree here. TB says personal success does not equal good leadership or good government head. This dude is just gushing over reliving his experience, and I don't blame him. At that age, to be that, come on, bro, to be that involved in something so important to the country, whether it was, something that actually mattered in the grand scheme of things, or just, what it was. It was just come on, what are we doing? All right, I'm pretty enough. Even if I'm blurry, I'm pretty, right? So the fact that he was a part of this as a young guy is, to me, the way he's talking about it, exactly like Jubi is saying, is more about, what he got to experience rather than what they, between him, Milo, and Ye, actually accomplished. And that's the I don't want to say ignorance, but naivete of somebody who's just not been part of the world for that long. At 24, I don't know exactly how old he is. 24. I know he's not older than 26, but I think he's 24. At 24, like, you just don't know. There's a lot you do know. There's certainly a big difference between somebody who's 24 and somebody who's 16 or 18. But there's a big difference between somebody who's 24 and somebody who's 28. Not always, but I'm saying that same person is going to be very different between those few years than they are in a much longer time frame as they're growing up.
Oh, and do political for 30 minutes, and then politics. And then he's got all these clothes on the floor, and he's got his seamstresses and his designers. And so we'll go and do political for 30 minutes, and then he'll go look at the clothes, and then he'll make decisions about clothes. Then he'll read out like lyrics that he wrote, like that song he released. The what is it? Someday We'll All Be Free. Mm-hmm. He just released during all that controversy. Like,
shameless plug. It says, Ye wants to have control again. The past few years of his life has flipped, and he's lost a lot. Yep. He's done a lot of great things, but I think he's better to do what he's best at. I agree. I think even the big religious push where, he has his church thing, I don't even really know much about it, but that seemed to be something that was... there was something beneath the surface. It didn't seem like, I just want to start a church. It seemed like I'm trying to accomplish something with this. And it didn't hit. It looked weird. It looked like, a cult meeting. And then that is what preceded all of the stuff that led us to Alex Jones. So I agree with you 100%. 100%.
One day he just came in and said, I wrote this last night. And he literally had just written that, in the middle of everything, boom.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were at another hotel and he just cranked that out while we were having a political meeting, while he was doing a meeting about the Donda School, while he was having a business meeting, so.
Does that sound healthy? Does that sound like good business to be overwhelming yourself? Or does it sound like somebody who's bipolar, who's having a manic episode? We're not making fun of that. We're just saying it's not like he's some amazing person because he did those things. Those are the results of him experiencing his mental illness, which is it's sad that people like Nick. Nick himself. I know. We'll get as soon as we get another one, you'll get a treat. Especially people like Nick who maybe don't know enough about the world, but specifically Ye and specifically bipolar to understand the difference, as he's saying right now. It can be easy for him to gush over all of the stuff that got done, or all of the stuff that he did, all the stuff that he was a part of, without realizing the larger implications of like, hey, this guy isn't somebody who is going to be good at handling the pressure of not just running the country, being commander-in-chief of the biggest and most important military in the world, and honestly, the leader of the free world. Like, it's just not something that he seems to be calculating. It doesn't seem like that comes into it. He's just like, yeah, Ye works hard, and he's got good ideas, so that's it. Like, it takes more than that, homie. It's more than that. Rufus is agreeing with Harley. Someone who never gets challenged by peers and is told they're the GOAT constantly is no one to make decisions over others. I love that, Rufus. Hard worker. I mean, he's definitely a hard worker. There's no question about that. He absolutely is a hard worker. Was he in prison? I don't know, but his jaw was wired shut. And he still put out an album. That's gangster. That's baller. That is awesome. That is hard work. That is dedication. That is passion. That is all of those things. What it is not is a sign that I trust you to lead this country. They're not correlated. B says that might actually end up being unhealthy. I mean, what do you think is gonna? Think of the public outbursts that he's had so far before he was even a part of this political landscape. And then you want him to not only be in politics, but you want him to be the president? And you think that's just going to be all Gucci? That ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. I mean, to be fair, a lot of people said the same thing about Trump, but I don't think it's the same. He has a lot of drive. Yep. He wants to do big and great things. Nothing wrong with that. However, you have to know your limits. Harley on point as always. You have to know your limits. You have to know what you can and cannot do. You have to know that if you want this to be done and you can't do it, that you need to turn to other people who are better at accomplishing the things that you want to accomplish. And the manic bipolar mindset is that I don't need anybody else. I can do this. We can do this. We can, or I have my crew and we together, we can do this. We don't need anybody else. We can take over the world. And like, that's typical textbook manic bipolar behavior. And he just doesn't see it. He just doesn't see it because he doesn't know any better. And there's a lot of other people who will see it and who do know better, but won't care. They won't care that being the president might drive Ye to literal self-deletion because they want a cool president. That's the extent of their concern about other people. How does it affect me? Me. That's all they care about. Hey, we got the Uncle Junior Network in the building. Welcome to the party. Awesome YouTuber. Definitely go check out his channel. I'm going to grab the link for you right now. Welcome to the party. Welcome. We are just talking about Nick Fuentes going on Just Pearly Things and kind of not really doing so great.
I mean, he really is like this Renaissance man, like Da Vinci, like I used to think that was a little bit of an exaggeration. Like, I knew he was a brilliant producer, and I knew he was a brilliant artist, and the fashion speaks for itself. It's like everybody's ripping off the Yeezy slides and the 350s. So I thought, yeah, like,
just drop the Uncle Junior Network YouTube link in the chat. Please go check him out. Awesome content creator. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, definitely do that.
he's clearly a super talented, you know,
Hold on, I missed that. I'm gonna back that up 1
a
second.
little bit of an exaggeration. Like, I knew he was a brilliant producer, and I knew he was a brilliant artist, and the fashion speaks for itself. It's
And therefore, that's enough to run a country and arguably the world.
like everybody's ripping off the Yeezy slides and the 350s. So I thought, yeah, like, he's
Yeah, I mean, the slides in the 350s, again, perfect sign that you know how to run the world.
clearly a super talented, you know, brilliant person with great ideas. But when he would say, I'm the greatest artist ever, I'd be like, well, you know, I don't know. But then you're with him, and it's
That's the least controversial thing that you could say about Kanye. Oh my goodness, the blessings from Uncle Junior Network. Thank you so much. No comment, no question, just pure love of the game. Thank you so much. Every single super chat comes with a treat for little Marty here. He says, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Uncle Junior Network. Let's put you in the banner.
like, nope, he is literally a Renaissance man, and he literally is involved. Because I imagine so many artists, you know, they have guys that write their songs or guys that make their beats, and you know, they're really not super involved. They just kind of put their name on it, basically, like Trump putting his name on a hotel. But no, I mean, he's 45 years old, and he's more ambitious and driven and hardworking than ever. And the other thing is,
Thank you again, Uncle
creative.
Junior.
Completely open. We'll hear all ideas, say things that everyone in the room will say and dismiss and say, oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's never been done before.
Yeah, maybe it's because it's crazy, and the reason it's never been done before is because it's a bad idea. Did you ever think of that?
And he fires those people and says, no, like, well, tell me, you know, what would it be like if we did that? Tell me how we can do that. I think that's why he's so innovative, because he'll go in a direction that is totally unexpected and maybe unconventional, and maybe even people think it's crazy, and he'll take it there and go there and try it out. And sometimes that's where you strike gold. Sometimes that's where you find the Gap hoodie or the 350s, or that's where you find Graduation, you know. So
These are all not analogous to running the country. You're conflating being good at this thing with being good at everything. And you yourself would be the first one to stand up and say that somebody who's an expert in gender studies or something about race, they may be an expert at their line of thinking, but you would easily, maybe not easily, but very quickly be like, oh, no, they don't know what I'm talking about. They're this, that. Like, bro, what are you saying? Oh, he made a good album, a bunch of good albums. So
he is an incredible person. And people say that he's crazy. He is completely lucid.
Hear it for Uncle Junior Network in the chat, sponsor of the stream.
He's hilarious. That's one of the understated things, is one of the most genuinely laugh out loud funny people I've ever met. And I think I'm a funny guy. I'm very picky. Most people I don't find funny. He is one of the funniest people I know, just like effortlessly, great sense of humor. So he's all around a wonderful person, you know, really. And it's such a shame he's been vilified, because
unless you're, you know, Jewish, right?
And I'm very saddened by the fact there's all these parasitic journalist types. I got ambushed by a BBC journalist. Sorry, I know there's a run on. I'm rambling a little, but there was this journalist who ambushed me.
I told you, Trey, it's mostly him. Don't worry about Pearl. It's mostly him.
And said, you know, you're exploiting him. He's clearly unwell. You're exploiting him.
So he's been called out for this. Well, let's hear what he's got to say.
And, you know, not only is that not true, but it's a little offensive because, one, he's fully in control, and two,
is he though?
I genuinely have such an admiration and respect for him. And
that doesn't blind me at all. I have genuinely, I have such an admiration and respect for him that even if he was a terrible person saying terrible things about entire groups of people, I'm going to go with him because I have an admiration and respect for him. Do you understand who we are talking about when we say Nick Fuentes? This is not a serious person. He may have some good ideas. He may be good at argumentation. He may be good at debate, but this is not a serious political player. At least not yet. He could definitely have an arc where, in 10 years, he's not even going to be eligible for president if he's 24. But in 10 years, he could be a very different person, but this ain't it. This ain't it.
And I'm one of the only guys that didn't get fired on his team because I feel like I'm the only one that went out there and said, I'm here to fulfill your vision. You're the genius. I'm the student. You made 10, 11 incredible studio albums. You changed the streetwear game. You're the guy. I'm here to learn from you and do what you want to do. And for people to say, oh, you're exploiting him or those are your ideas, couldn't be further from the truth.
Again, just irrelevant to whether he is somebody we should trust to be at the helm of this country. So in the last clip here, it might go over some of the same stuff, but does Kanye have a chance at winning the presidency? Last chapter here.
Do you think Kanye could win?
I think you could, yeah.
Do you think they could reconcile Trump and Kanye?
Yeah,
do you think Trump would?
I don't know, because he is very vengeful and spiteful and stubborn. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if it worked out a certain way.
How crazy would it be? Would Kanye ever be a VP to Trump? I
don't think so.
I don't think Trump would ever be a VP to Kanye.
No, probably
not.
Not.
It's too much of a ego thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was like, I almost think Kanye. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Yay, I can't. I'm sorry. But I almost think Ye would. It would be so interesting to see both of them on a ticket.
Yeah.
And I think Ye would say yes to that before Trump would. I'm not saying I think either of them would, but if I had to put guess one would before the other, because he could run for president the year after.
Yeah.
Couldn't he?
Yeah, because he's young enough and everything. But no, I mean, Ye, people know he wants to be the president. I mean, there's no campaign. He hasn't announced anything. So I don't have any breaking news on that front. But I think that he is a visionary leader. He truly is a visionary, and he's not a politician, so he doesn't know the ins and outs of the political scene or whatever. But he's got ideas that can change the world, and he thinks about politics in a way that makes political people feel stupid. He makes me feel stupid. He asks me questions and makes me feel like an idiot.
Right, but that's why you'd almost, because they're both geniuses in different ways. I would love to see them on the same ticket.
They should work together, yeah.
But it's more of, it's almost like an ego, whose ego is gonna, because I think both of them would have a hard time being vice president.
So they kind of went over some of this stuff already, and I'm not ready to leave yet. I'm not leaving. So I got some other clips here for you. We have one here with Destiny with Lex Friedman talking about debating Nick Fuentes. And, now that we've seen him speak directly with somebody who's not really in the political space, very interested to hear what these guys have to say. I have not seen this at all, but it's just a short clip. And then we have something from No Jumper, and we'll just see. We'll keep going and see where we go. Harley says Trump and Kanye definitely couldn't be in office together. I agree with you. I don't think that would ever work. We're talking about the egos are just too big. And I was saying even the ego game with Trump and DeSantis is probably too much, that they wouldn't be on a ticket together. I think DeSantis might be willing to be VP for his own presidential aspirations, but even still, I just don't think it's viable. So let's see what we've got here.
I don't know if you do those kinds of conversations where
Never talked to any country leaders, so
no, not a country leader, but say a controversial figure or somebody that represents a certain
We should all try to be like Harley Rose.
idea. Don't just talk in the space of ideas or challenge the ideas, but understand who is this person? How did you come to those ideas?
oh yeah, when there have been a couple of very controversial right-leaning figures. So the two, obviously, the my streamers maybe they're Lauren Southern and Nick Fuentes, and those types of conversations initially aren't very political at all. Yeah,
So that's interesting that he brings up Lauren Southern in the same context. If you're not familiar, she's a Canadian conservative commentator. She's been doing a lot, since like 2015. She took a little break and she's back now, but she's much more of a real political commentator. Again, you can disagree or agree with her, but much more serious player than Fuentes. But I guess in Destiny's mind, they are the same.
that's more like obviously we believe in very, very, very different things, but like beliefs don't happen accidentally. So how did you get to where you are? Those are way more personal.
Struggle streaming. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
Conversations. That's true. Yeah.
Is there things you regret about those conversations where you failed? Is there things you're proud of where you succeeded?
So I'm expecting him to address something around the context of platforming these people. That's a big thing on the left. Like, oh, you shouldn't talk to these people because you're giving them a platform. Let's see if he goes there.
For things that I'm proud of, I feel like I'm really good at attempting to understand people without judgment. That I think a lot of people feel like they can have conversations with me where they can share a lot, and I'm not going to jump down their throat for them having a politically incorrect observation.
That's something I really, obviously, Destiny and I are going to disagree on what is politically incorrect, or not politically incorrect as opposed to like politically correct, but politically accurate. But I do definitely think that he is somebody who can have those types of conversations, and I don't think a lot of people can do that anymore. I think it's a maybe not rare, but becoming more and more rare to see people who actually are able to speak with people who they don't agree with and have a productive conversation. And that's why we cover him so much. As much as I disagree with Destiny, he's good at what he does.
Or for them being judgmental of somebody else or having like a feeling that's maybe not something they should have, something they're embarrassed about. So I think I do a really good job at that. And then by extension of that, I've gotten the ability to hear perspectives from so many different people that I think I can understand a lot of different perspectives. For failures of mine,
Podcast in the world,
I mean,
man.
it's always going to be on stream. It'll be like I didn't push back hard enough, or I didn't know like a certain fact for a conversation. These are usually they're going to be on these like very technical grounds. Generally, I'm pretty happy with like the direction my conversations have gone recently, especially over like the past 6 months.
So your goal is to de-radicalize the audience of those folks.
So that used to be my goal. My goal was de-radicalization. Now I'm
No
kind of
jumper.
hoping that that's just a
hold on.
byproduct. So the goal I think is
Decent goal to as he was saying originally, he was trying to address those things, but I missed it there. He said used to be my goal
was de-radicalization. Now I'm kind of hoping that that's just the byproduct. So the goal I think is to talk to somebody and to show they believe this because of these reasons. And if you want to change people's beliefs, we have to talk about the underlying reasons for why they think the things they think. It's not enough to just say like that belief is bad, because it's like, well, they believe it for a whole bunch of things that are true and real to them at least. So you have
That's the way that we need to look at our political opponents, that they're not evil, awful people. They just got to wherever they got to on a different avenue. It's not like they physically live in a different world, although mentally they certainly do. They're all in that world together. So it's not one individual's fault. And so when you're having those conversations, it's good to keep that in mind.
have to address all of the underlying things that they believe before you can change the overlying belief.
Think about how much more relevant to politics, discussion, culture, just in the few minutes, 2 minutes of content that we've been listening to Destiny, and we just spent an hour and a half with Fuentes. And I mean, Maybe it's Pearl's fault. We've seen Pearl kind of drop the ball, but also he was talking a lot. So I have a little bit here from No Jumper. Let's just finish this up and let's see how Nick Fuentes did on No Jumper.
So if I'm having a conversation with somebody, it'll be like, okay, why do you feel this about that, that, and that? Okay, I understand that. Maybe like a better way to solve that would be like this or that instead of this thing.
So to what degree do you have to empathize with the person's worldview versus pushback?
That's always the hard one. When I'm talking to other people, it's almost always me stepping as much inside their bubble as I can. I have to like live and breathe their worldview and be able to speak their worldview in order to like navigate their thoughts. Because my worldview is I'm not even using this as an insult. I don't know if I am a little bit autistic or something, but when I break apart things, I just want to see like study, fact. That's how my mind works for everything. That's what I like to see. Like, personal stories don't do much.
That's how every liberal's mind works. So, okay. So we're getting an idea of the differences between, somebody on the left and somebody like Nick Fuentes. I don't even want to put him in a category. Now that we're seeing that kind of mentality of people who have had long form discussions with him, then let's see, when he was on the No Jumper podcast, I skipped to this chapter that said, what was it? Race realism. So let's see if he gets in a little bit more depth about what he meant about that, because Pearl didn't really give us much.
White people have white skin. That's determined by genetics. And so race realism is simply the idea that race is a biological reality. Now, what you're talking about is these disparities in IQ, which someone who believes in race would say that disparities in IQ, well, IQ is a heritable characteristics. You would say that that's the difference in IQ between the races is a function of a genetic difference. It doesn't mean that blacks are better than whites. And by the way, I brought up Destiny a moment ago because he's been popularizing this. He's been trying to say, Nick believes these things, but he's going to put on his good face. Destiny believes in the same facts. He just doesn't believe in the genetic explanation, which is a legitimate explanation. He just doesn't tell you that.
Right. So, I mean, would you say that you've been smeared by the mainstream media or whatever as being more racist than you are?
Yeah. I mean, they lie about my views because, like I said, I'm very open about my views. I'm not ashamed of them. I'm looking for people to tell my views, and I can give it in the most extreme way. But people say things like Nick wants to live in a whites-only country, and Nick thinks whites are better than other people.
And whose fault is that, Nick? Whose fault is that? Your rhetoric spreads that message. Now, sure, I'm sure that if you watch cozy.tv every day and listen to everything that Nick Fuentes has to say, then you can understand the nuances of his positions a little bit better. But we know that we don't live in that world. Most people aren't listening to long form conversations. They're listening to clips. They're listening to and so you have to be aware of how you're getting clipped out of context and the hard hitting moments where you have that soundbite. It needs to express at least a modicum of what the underlying nuances actually mean. Otherwise, you can't blame other people for getting the wrong idea about you. This is exactly the same with Andrew Tate. I think Andrew Tate has, has maybe not great ideas in the sense that other people don't have them, but he's just saying a lot of the things that people have kind of been saying on a smaller scale for a long time. And the guys who have been in that echelon when it comes to dating certainly have always known this. It's just not been talked about. And so the difference is, how are you presenting yourself to the people who don't know who you are?
It's like, I don't believe those kinds of things. So, yeah, that's why I am smeared.
What is your overall opinion about African-American people?
I think they're, what do you mean my overall opinion?
Just
great qualifier. That is something you definitely want to qualify before you answer that question.
Off the bat, what do you think about black people?
I think they're good people. I love people. I love all kinds of people. I love black people. My family goes back in Chicago like 4 generations. And so my family's grown up with black people, lived with and among black people for over 100 years. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in Chicago. My parents, they ran a security school on the south side of Chicago, South Loop, where they trained a lot of black people how to shoot guns and become security guards and cops and things like that. I grew up in the suburbs, so I didn't have as much interactions with black people as my parents and grandparents, but
no, you don't say.
I think they're upstanding people. I like their art. I think they're talented. I'm friends with a lot of black people. So,
but you would rather.
So even just saying that, in my mind, If Trey or any other black people are still here, let me know if you agree. But speaking like that, as if black people, speaking as if black people are just a monolith, and I love black people. They do this whole thing that and then of course I have black friends. But is that not racist to be like, I love black people? Like, how many black people do you even know? How many people do you know? How can you possibly know enough people, specifically black people, but how can you know enough people to be able to determine how you feel about an entire race? What are we doing here, bro? What are we doing here? I love black people. I'm friends with a lot of black people, so I'm hoping that no jumper comes down on that.
They live in an ethno state, and all the races just sort of stick together.
I wouldn't say that necessarily, because the thing is that all countries have some amount of diversity. What I would say is I'm against immigration, because America's always been a white and black country since its founding. When the United States was founded, or when Europeans began to settle, even though obviously blacks were brought over as slaves, when they were emancipated, and before that, it was a country that was white and black. And that is a dynamic that's changing in the last 60 years because of immigration. So I don't know that I would say like, I'd prefer to. I mean,
this is very different from what he was saying. And so how old is this? This is from October of last year. So not that long ago, just a few months ago. What is that? 6 months, 5 months? And he's not saying that it's primarily about immigration. With Pearl, he was specifically talking about the percentage of white people, where he just now, or at the time of the recording, he just here said that it's more about immigration, and that America is supposed to be white and black. First of all, I'm brown, and I believe it. I belong here. And secondly, your messages are all over the place. This is what I mean when I'm talking about the sound bites. You can clip that sound bite, and it's not going to match anything that we just heard him say in any of those clips. Now, sure, we didn't listen to the full Rumble thing. Maybe we should have. I'm kind of glad we didn't, because I don't think we're going to be covering Pearl anymore, regardless of who she has on. But this is not the same thing. Any films that's so confusing. There is no difference in people based on skin shading, obviously. Much more difference in economic background. That's what people like this are missing. They're just as bad as the let's say the leaders of BLM and the politicians who support that organization. It's not about your melanin levels. It's not about that. And it hasn't been about that for so long. Are there overlaps? Of course. But it's about the money. It's about the money.
It is what it is. The country is what it is. I just want to stop immigration.
In what sense? Like, you just think that we allow people into the country too easily, or do we not allow the right kinds of people? I've heard that argument, that it's easy for like low skill workers to get into America, and that they sometimes make it hard for like PhDs to stay in the country.
It's just too many. That's the problem. Because
how are low skilled workers having anything to do with what's going on if you have a PhD? If you have a PhD and your job can be taken by a low skilled worker, maybe you don't deserve that job. And maybe that degree is bullshit.
The thing is, I guess I'll say it another way. I'm not necessarily against immigration, but we have now.
You just said you were primarily against immigration.
Is like millions of people coming in every year, where you're getting tens of millions in a very short amount of time. And it's just changing how the country is fundamentally. Countries can have immigration. They can bring in, you could say, a lot of people without changing like the demographic composition of the country, which is what we're doing.
And still have not said why that is a bad thing. Well, it's different. It's not any worse, but I wanted to stop making it different. If it's not any worse, then why do you want to stop it from changing? I feel like that's a legitimate question.
We used to have an immigration policy for a long time where it restricted the immigration groups based on national origins, and we would let them in waves, so they would come in and they'd assimilate. what we had after the 65 Immigration Act and the 1990 Immigration Act is they just opened up the spigot of immigration, and the people come and they just don't stop, and they come in bigger numbers every year, and it never relents and never stops. And what's happening now is it's just totally changing the landscape of the country culturally, in terms of the language, our identity as a nation. And that's honestly bad for everybody that considers themselves an American, I think. So, I mean, we can have low-skilled people to address, the labor needs, or high-skilled people, depending on, what you need. But bring in, 100,000 people. Don't bring in like 3 million people in a year,
I mean, that's definitely an argument that I think a lot of people agree with. That saying immigration is too much. Whether just immigration in general, that because of the fact that illegal immigration has been running rampant, that it creates the space for someone like Nick Fuentes to say, let's stop all immigration. And I have been on record saying that I would have to look into it and do more research, but it makes sense that because of all the illegal immigration, that those illegal immigrants ruined the chances of people going through the process, like my parents, again, first generation American here, would not be here without the American immigration system. But there's only so much stuff. Resources are finite, and Americans don't have what they need. Now, again, if you're a PhD and your job is getting taken, then that's on you. I don't know what to say. But if you don't have a PhD, well, that's a very different story. Very different story.
Right. What I will say is that when I see like a fucking refugee crisis, I'm just like, why is there any kind of pressure on us to allow any more people than we fucking feel like allowing into our country? Like, it's just not, it shouldn't be our problem at a certain point. And it's just crazy that we're expected to make this our problem, that people are just showing up and trying to come in.
Yeah, and that's the question, is what is their government's responsibility to their own people? Every time there's a government that gets toppled, or there's a horrible economic disaster or something, that like in Haiti's a good example. There's something going on right now. And the Haiti government collapsed because their government stole all this money. They have this deal with Venezuela, where Venezuela loans them oil, and the Haitian government can defer payment for the oil, and they can sell the oil.
Oh, is Sneeko coming into the panel? What is going on? I did not know this was happening.
Make money on it, and then they were supposed to use that for social programs, and the government just stole all the money. So then when the Venezuelan economy collapsed, they stopped exporting oil, and the fuel prices shot up, and now the Haitian government owes the money on the oil. And so now the economy's in free fall. There's gangs controlling the streets, and now all these refugees are coming to the United States and Central America.
Look at this refugee right here.
Gang. We talk about Haitians.
Yeah.
My face.
Sneeko, welcome to the gang, I guess.
I don't think I've seen Sneeko in the time period, because this was in October. I don't think I've seen Sneeko at all since he was banned off YouTube. So I wish we started with this, man. This is why I love you guys sticking around. We stumbled into something. I was never once used my master's interdimensional basket weaving. Well, not surprised. Good one.
Panel.
Yeah. Not a gang. I'm not in a gang with Nick. I'll take that back.
I'm in a gang with Nick.
You are.
I'm in God's gang with Nick and Ye.
Jesus gang.
I'm glad that you're back. Well, you guys, AD will agree with you on that. He's a big God guy.
Oh,
that's. I just have to stop. And I know a lot of people are commenting on this, but the whole thing with the red pill dudes who are talking about, all the red pill stuff, and now the trend is to go Muslim. It's so weird. It's so weird. It's so transparent. And it's to use Sneeko's terminology, it's the biggest bot behavior. It's a cop-out. Well, oh yeah, Muslims can have all these women. So all of the things that I said that have nothing to do with religion or tradition or anything like that now are justified. Don't work that way.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm glad that Sneeko is here, because this was all his plan. I think that the whole theme here is basically Sneeko saying that Nick Fuentes should be normalized and treated like a part of acceptable society, and that's what we're trying to hash out today.
He should be. And I think now that Ye's getting canceled and that he just signed with Pearly is proving the fact that if you talk about a specific group, that you will automatically be deplatformed. And you saw, I don't know if you talk about what happened with Nori, but Nori went on every fucking radio show apologizing for someone else's comments, because all Ye said was he's jealous of Jewish power. That's as far as it went. And then
that's all. Just, taking a group of people and treating them all the same. Putting them in one basket. That's all.
Even if someone's
that's a
on
nice
your
view
platform,
of what he said. He actually said something way more aggressive than that.
Yeah, but it was all because
of the George Floyd comments.
That too. I think like the Jews stuff almost got pushed to the background in favor of people really trying to cancel him for the George Floyd shit.
Nah, hell nah.
No,
I think the Jewish stuff was
100%.
definitely like the prominent issue there, right?
I think they're both issues, but I just felt like I saw a lot more people honing in on the George Floyd shit.
I've never seen anybody, like quote unquote, get mass canceled for being quote unquote racist, right? In terms of somebody black right now, I believe that Kanye, especially like this morning with Hot 97, they brought him on to like address like his statements towards like
spit it out, bro.
Like the quote unquote like Jews, right? Not right, but no, here, right. But look at this though. Again, but the main issue was Kanye was quote unquote anti-Semitic, and he got canceled for that. And then Kanye went on Drinks Champ and pretty much doubled down on his takes on Jews, and that's what I think the issue is, bro. And again, like me personally, I don't think that Revolt or like IG or like YouTube is out here canceling Kanye because he said some racist shit.
Well, we don't know if the Drink Champs interview was removed because of Revolt making the decision or YouTube deciding to remove it. Although if YouTube might have said we're going to remove it if you don't remove it, or Revolt might have just done it on their own accord.
Yeah, it was probably Nori's publicist. His manager called him up.
Private in it though.
But Ye was wilding. Ye was talking crazy about the Jewish power. So what you need to do to protect yourself in your bank account right now is delete the video and go on every single radio show and apologize, or else they're going to come after everything and all your money. And so he did that. He said, okay, it's actually not worth it. I don't care what Ye said. I'm sorry. I just want to keep my bank account and I don't want to go on a no-fly list because of something that Ye said.
Well, it is weird if you're Nori and Kanye just start saying like, well, George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. And I mean, you're not the fucking coroner. Like, what do you know? Like how's Nori supposed to?
But he did though, right? I mean, that's how he died. That's how he died. How it says in Islam, you can have up to 4 wives. However, you have to be able to financially support all their needs, and you have to be just between all of them. 99% of men cannot do that. I mean, just like 99% of men are not going to have a Bugatti. I don't think that is necessarily the issue. I think the issue is I don't think the issue is aspiring to have 4 wives and to be able to financially support them. I don't think the problem is being, same thing with the Bugatti and all that. It's the end piece here. 99% of men cannot do that. Now, the other side of that is that if shoot for the stars, you'll hit the moon, or is it the other way around? Whatever, you know what I mean. If there are young men who are just not doing anything to help themselves and to move forward in life, and then you have somebody like a Sneeko or a Andrew Tate coming and telling them that they can do all of these things, even if they can't, then getting them to start doing something, I think, is a positive, a positive, just a net positive in the world. That doesn't mean that everything that Sneeko and Tate have done are net positives. I'm specifically talking about that aspect. So even though I do believe the big problem with their messaging is not highlighting the fact that, hey, most of you guys aren't going to do this, but if you aspire to this, you'll if you aspire to be this, then this is exactly what you're going to be. If you aspire to be this, then at least you're definitely going to get here. If that was the messaging, I would have no problem. But it's just very it's very transparent. It's like, okay, I see what you're doing, and you're cleaning up on the ignorance of these specifically young men who don't know any better. And while you're pretending, or maybe you really think that you're being a leader to them, you are leading them on in the short term on a positive path. But if you don't talk about the 99% of men who can't do it, you're leading them to failure. Ryan says, to know who rules over you, look to whom can't be criticized. Nice Voltaire quote there. Part of the idea of the West being stable is providing 1 wife per man. Which countries are more stable? I'm just saying, you ain't wrong.
To respond to that,
Stick to the science of it, though.
Yeah,
They said that he lost his life because of a lack of oxygen.
But does Nori have these facts memorized? Like, that's why it's awkward. And that's why people say that we shouldn't platform people like Nick Fuentes.
He's too smart.
Because they're just going to say some random shit and we're just going to go along with it. But the more specific accusation about Nick is that he is basically bundling up his white supremacist ideas in this nice sports coat and everything, and that he acts real cool. Hey, I love black art. Yeah, Nas is cool. And that's what I like. That's what people are going to fucking destroy me for, is if I am not perceived as being aggressive enough towards Nick.
And I seen some shit today, and I said, you know what? I usually don't do my homework and shit like that. I seen some shit today that made me disgusted as an African American.
Well, lay it out there, AD.
All right, so for one,
Let's
you
hear
said
it.
You never seen black people jog before?
I'm at Arbery. Nah,
You're
it's not
disgusted
funny.
by that?
Yeah,
Well,
I'm
white
disgusted
people
by that
jogging
because-
is a white people activity.
No, but in the sense of Ahmaud Arbery, you know what I'm saying, the way he lost his life because jogging in a neighborhood and then some, you know what they did to him. That's fucked up.
Kind of. It absolutely was effed up. Was he just jogging though? Let's leave that there.
You know what I'm saying? I'm a black person. I don't look like I jog, but I jog. You know what I mean? Like,
come on, where do you jog? You jog in the streets?
Nigga,
Like
no,
Lululemons?
I don't live in the streets anymore. I moved out the streets, so I jog in a nice neighborhood.
Well,
where I
there you
stay
go.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Well, and if you look at the specifics of the case, though, and that's a little bit of old news, so I may be a little fuzzy on the details, but he was jogging a long way from where he lived. He was jogging in boots. You know, you can jog, but usually jog in sneakers, you jog in gym shoes, you don't jog in boots. And there was a series of break-ins reported in the area too. And he was caught on camera on that construction site. And I remember at the time, Matt Walsh from Daily Wire was like, this is just something the guys do. We go in, we climb the fence, we jump in, and we walk around construction sites. And it's like, okay, so he's in boots, he's miles from his house, he's jogging, he's on the construction site. There's
These are all facts. These are all straight facts.
burglaries in the area. Now, I'll admit, they pulled a gun on him. I would probably say that was probably over the line. And, they got charged for that.
Finally, I agree with Nick Fuentes on something. They went too far, but the story was not as it was portrayed to be. Fair enough.
I would say, is that a first degree murder? No. What do you call that? I'm not like a lawyer. I don't know what you would call that. But the point is they tried to make it out like this was the new Ku Klux Klan. The most you could say about it is the guys were overzealous about it.
But a guy ended up losing his life at the end of it.
Yeah. And I think that
that doesn't change the facts around how that happened. We can be sad about the fact that happened without muddying the waters on the facts that led up to this horrible thing that happened. You don't have to swallow the narrative whole. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Nothing.
for once again for them to
technically
pull.
jogging.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you can't argue if all those facts are true of a guy fucking far from home jogging in work boots. That is pretty out of the ordinary. I think that the main issue people had with it was just the amount of force that those guys demonstrated and how comfortable they seem to be with like basically taking the law into their own hands.
Yeah, and like I said, should they have pulled a gun on him? Like I said, I think that was inappropriate. But they try to expand this because that preceded the George Floyd thing by a few months. They try to turn that into there's a systemic white supremacy problem among the police, and it's like that's where you draw the line. Is this sort of like a bad situation, or does this represent this horrible undercurrent? I think if anything, it's quite the opposite. I think if anything, blacks get treated better than white people.
Hell no.
All right, this is where you go off the deep end, bro. This is where you go off the deep end. In what way are black people treated better than white people? Maybe on the surface level of you can make fun of white people more easily than you can make fun of black people. But I think it stops there. I will absolutely say that the only group of people that you can just go full bore and make fun of them and not get in trouble is straight white men. There is no other group that somebody isn't going to give you shit for making fun of them as a group. Straight white men, it's the only group that you can, but treated better than white people. Come on, man.
Absolutely.
I lived in some of these. I lived in Compton almost my whole life, and the way the police used to treat me and my friends was terrible, bro. And like,
not by the police. I'm talking about by the university. I'm talking about by the media, by the institution. Sorry to interrupt, but.
Nah, I disagree with that as well too. I feel like now we're getting a lot of light shed on things because of social media and people having more voices than they usually have. But before, a lot of shit used to get swept under the rug. Like where I come from, I seen all type of, injustice that people don't even get to talk about. I got a lot of homeboys behind bars for shit that they didn't do. You know what I mean? Like one of my earliest memories that I can tell you about, I remember I was in a neighborhood one time and I got pulled over. And the police, they were asking me, oh, where you from and everything. They're checking my tattoos and stuff like that. I tell them, oh, nothing, whatever it is, what it is. The fucking, I don't know if it's the chief or whoever it was that pulled me over. He just leaves me for like 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying? In a bad neighborhood. And when he comes back, he smiles at me and my key is bent. I can't even drive my car. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want me to get hurt when I was just, going to work.
That's your example of he left. Why is the neighborhood bad?
What do you mean?
Who's in the neighborhood?
We
Is
have
that a white neighborhood?
No, it's not a white neighborhood.
It's not about the color of the people. It's about whether they're committing crimes and willing to kill you and jump you and stuff. Do you think that the only people who are willing to do that are black? Of course. There is an overlap with the people who are low economic, socioeconomic status and people who happen to be black. There's definitely connections to, the racism, the systemic racism that absolutely did exist for a long time in this country. And while that, while your personal experience with the cops is not anything more than an anecdote, it certainly isn't proof that that anecdote doesn't represent a larger trend. Come on, bro.
The key.
He bent the key.
Oh, I see. He bent
where I couldn't start my car. You know what I'm saying?
Why do you think though that I guess blacks are, treated better in this country?
Or why is it so hard to believe that there are racist police officers?
I'm not saying there aren't racist.
It's just the idea that the whole institution is white supremacist is right over the line.
No.
That's kept to keep people brainwashed and yelling about stupid shit during the quarantine so that they focus on non-problems instead of what's really going on.
No, but
I much prefer that's going again too far in the other direction. Oh yeah, cops are great. Are they though? It's more about just corruption in general than racism, in my opinion. While there is absolutely racist undertones there, you put those together. But I think the corruption and the tribalism of the thin blue line is a much bigger problem than anything else. Myron says, although Compton has their own police department for a while, also, isn't it an Homeboy story from dead presidents? What? I don't know what's going on. I'm over for that's 3 tonight. I don't know what you're saying.
Black Lives Matter didn't solve anything, and they told us to focus on this one instance of George Floyd. So maybe Ye was wrong talking about the fentanyl, I'm not sure. But the whole idea of it was that George Floyd was just used as an example to make everybody outraged, and it worked. We didn't solve anything with it. $85 million went nowhere, and the neighborhoods that they were trying to protect are worse now.
Well, that definitely seems like it's true. Yeah.
No, but
and the thing is, I'm not like a big cheerleader for the cops or anything. I'm not like a Blue Lives Matter guy by any stretch. I'm not by any stretch a person that's going to say because there's cops that are assholes to black people and white people, and I think the cops as an institution are totally corrupt. When I say
there you go,
like George Floyd's a perfect
wrong button. There you go. It's about corruption. It's about corruption, and all whatever 5 of you can agree on the corruption. When you try to turn it into a racism or a complete lack of racism, it accomplishes nothing. It accomplishes nothing.
Example. Here's a guy who is a criminal. Here's a guy who is dealing drugs.
Yep.
He's got a long rap sheet.
Yep.
He's a burglar.
Yep.
And the guy clearly died from fentanyl. The autopsy report in that county said that he died of a heart attack.
Yep.
And he had all these drugs in his system. He not only had fentanyl, but also had methamphetamine in his system.
But the
So it's not really,
coroner said
the coroner
that he
did say
died
that.
from
He
the
died
knee on his neck,
with a
right?
knee on his neck.
Is
autopsy
there,
said it was a heart attack. Autopsy said it was a heart attack.
is there a disagreement between the
Yeah.
autopsy and the coroner?
I believe there were 2 autopsies performed. I think there was one that was performed by the county and one that was performed by somebody else. But yeah, there was.
Hey, we got Lee in the building. What is good? What is good? Says Nick Fuentes is a scumbag of epic proportions, and we are finding out exactly to what degree. Welcome to the party. Glad you are here. We were checking out him on Just Pearly Things earlier, but she kind of sucks, so we've switched over to here. We might do a little bit of skipping around, but they're having a good conversation here. So, Oh, you were talking about movies. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, not about Men in Society. Are you not familiar? Yeah. I didn't realize you were talking about movies. Gotcha.
A dispute about that, and they did find drugs in the system. So, and in any case,
But what does drugs have to do with the situation of why he got arrested in the first place?
he died from he got arrested
Because he was using whatchamacallit. What's the word? Counterfeit money. And then he jumps into the car with a drug dealer. And then he has drugs in his system. And then he spits out a pill in the back of the cop car. And he's freaking out because he doesn't want to go to jail. And I can tell you from personal experience, as a former drug addict, on those same type of drugs, you will do anything. Literally give up your life to not have to deal with a cold turkey withdrawal. And especially if you're doing fentanyl, bro, that does not surprise me at all. There are many, many, many people who, given the choice, would long before they had to go through the withdrawal. Does that mean that, it was okay the way that George Floyd was treated? Absolutely not. But facts matter. Oh, it says Nick is a drifter. I'm going to assume you mean grifter. He's literally contradicted himself several times already. He's just a guy that gets a lot of attention because he says wild stuff. He doesn't stand for anything real. He just has again, I'm talking about the sound bites. He has these sound bites that resonate with people who don't hear the context. Because there's no larger context. He just has good sound bites. That's it. Good for, not for my ideology, but for those who follow him.
Arrested because he was trying to pass a counterfeit bill. So he was in the process of committing a crime. And then he was tweaking out because he was high.
Yep.
And then he was in this unfortunate position where, you're high and probably having some kind of heart attack or some kind of medical episode while you're in the process of an arrest.
Well, if you can't breathe.
Which then you are going to have to do the withdrawal that I just talked about. And he's just probably, well, if you can't breathe, he could breathe. If he couldn't breathe, it had nothing to do with the cops because they were trying to get him in the car. And George Floyd asked to be taken out of the car and to be put on the ground.
Even you screaming out, mommy,
just like he did when he got arrested the last time. And we realized, oh, mama, not mommy, mama was the nickname he had for his girlfriend.
I'm saying, and you're saying that you can't breathe and they keep putting force on him.
Yeah, because criminals who are about to get arrested never lie.
I mean,
he was saying he couldn't breathe before he was on the ground. He was saying he couldn't breathe before they were trying to get him into the cop car, and he was saying that. And I understand what you're saying, but the problem is we start in the middle of the story where you got a guy who's like a criminal, you got a guy who's in the process of committing a crime, and he's high, and people want to start the story where he's on the ground and say, oh, well, they shouldn't have done this technique or whatever. And it sort of ignores the fact that, why do you have so much exposure between the police and black people? It's because black people are committing the majority of the violent crime. That's the real problem. If they had a crime rate similar to white people, there'd be a lot fewer incidences overall.
Unfortunately, that is not a racist statement. That is a true fact. If you look at the statistics, now there's definitely reasons that we can talk about why that is the case. But that absolutely is the case. We have to be very careful with saying, Nick is a grifter and he's a POS and all of this. That doesn't mean that he can't say facts. That doesn't mean that he can't stand behind facts that a lot of other people are uncomfortable with talking about. We're after the truth here. He can be a scumbag, but if he says what's true, I'm going to listen.
Of police involved or cop involved shootings with black people or negative situations like that. So that's always the issue.
When I listen to Nick, I have a hard time trying to dissect it because I consider myself a truthful person.
I said, shit, me too.
So when I listen to what he's saying, it's like I think Nick leads with statistics and facts a lot of time. And that's the problem, is that we're meant to think like people like him are bad and we're supposed to push back. And if you don't push back, you are going to get in trouble uploading this video. Part of the reason I got a couple strikes.
I don't give a fuck about the pushback and everything.
No, but I just want to finish the point. Like, you're supposed to, or else like that was part of the reason I was terminated on YouTube, was I was listening to Nick and I was laughing and I wasn't disagreeing. But he could be on Destiny's channel or he could be on other people's channel who disagree with him and they keep you on. And I think that should show. But when I listen to him, and Adam, you called him a white supremacist earlier.
Well, I'm not name calling at all. I'm just trying to get him to be upfront about his.
But you said that.
So before we get to that, Harley says the can't breathe thing is from him suffering cardiac arrest while being arrested. Then he's high and starting to panic. The officers and Floyd couldn't tell he was having a medical emergency. This, I think, is a failure on the part of all of the cops there to there was a situation. Well, George Floyd was a big dude. He was not that big of a dude. Call for backup, get him in the car, get him in a paddy wagon where he has more space. Do what you got to do. But just having him there on the street, the optics of that are going to affect how people see this. And it was bad. It was bad. Don't do that. Because how else can people interpret that? Most people aren't looking into the coroner's reports. They're just seeing the video clip and reacting. I did the same thing. Before all the body cam footage was available, I did the same thing. But you have to do better. We all have to do better.
You said that Nick is a white supremacist. I'm curious to like what he said specifically that makes you think that.
Well, I did hear leaked audio of you comparing a white woman having sex with a dog to having sex with a black man, and saying that it was basically the same level of degeneracy, and that was like leaked audio. So I felt like that was kind of telling about what you might say behind the scenes.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad. And he's saying, "Yeah, oh, let's hear the explanation for this one."
And
maybe that was a joke.
Well, no. I mean, I can explain the.
It didn't sound like a joke.
Well, hang on. I can explain the context of that. And the thing is, I'm going to answer that. But first, I want to say the better question.
Not answering the question.
Is because I saw your stream yesterday, full disclosure, Adam, on Twitch, where you went to the SPLC, which is an advocacy group.
And I will acknowledge that the SPLC has deemed a lot of people and different podcasts that I enjoy like basically hate groups. So I don't put a lot of faith in their opinion off rip. So I did go there to get some information on stream. Well, but I'm not saying that I deem them a respectable organization.
Well, and that's fair enough. But I'm saying the point is, and this is the question that should be asked about that. They're advocates. That's an advocacy group, and they're paid to mine. I've been doing streaming for 6 years. I produce thousands and thousands of hours of content. They're paid to mine, the 10 or 15 worst things, 10 seconds. Like, let me ask you, you don't know the circumstances surrounding that clip, but it was provided there for you in a 10-second bite for you to get a certain impression of me. And that clip is from 5 or 6 years ago. I know you might say, well, it doesn't matter how old it is because the content is so offensive, but it sort of begs a certain question, which is, why does this exist? Who's paying for this? To what end? Why is the SPLC? Because at the time, I'm an 18-year-old kid.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I'm not blaming an 18-year-old kid for not understanding the larger implications of the permanency of the internet, regardless of what he said. But at the end of the day, you said it. You weren't joking. So it doesn't really matter how old it was, as you just said. It doesn't really matter if the SPLC is out to get you. If you said some effed up stuff, you said it. Own it. And so I don't know if you guys realize, I'm not trying specifically to jump back and forth over the line on, oh, Nick is good, Nick is bad. I'm not looking to have that to make that opinion. And I'm not looking to give you that an opinion to run with. I'm taking the conversation that we're listening to and judging it on the merits of the truth claims, the debate tactics, answering questions and not answering questions, stuff like that. I was just not answering the question. Why did he say it? What was the context before? So he did say, before I answer that, so maybe he's going to give some context and then answer it, but not answering the question. Hey, we got our resident sausage, Jimmy Dean, in the building. Can't stay just dropping a like. That is all right. Please don't take it personally that I am taking away your wrench. I'm taking it away from everybody, and those who are doing what I'm asking are going to get it back. So it's everybody. It's not you. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you, brother. Resident sausage in the building.
The circumstances about that is I was at a job training, and it was like 3 a.m. It's late at night. It was for a political thing. And I was saying that I'm against race mixing. I think that people should marry their own kind. I want a white wife. That's a value that I have. My race matters to me. My identity matters to me. I want my kids to look like me. I want my grandkids to look like me. I think that's
Why? Why is that important to you? If they are your children, they will literally have your DNA. Why exactly does it matter that they look like you? I'm not saying that that's an unreasonable position. You have not given us an answer as to why.
Positive value that I think other people should share as well. I don't judge people that are mixed race. I mean, some people say I'm mixed race. My dad's half Mexican. My mom's Italian.
That's not some people, bro. Like, that's what it means to be mixed race.
Some people would say that's mixed race. Obviously, I don't hate people that are mixed race or people that race mix, but it's just a value for me. And anyway, so I was explaining that. And this girl picks up her phone because I'm saying something that's contrary, because you can't be against race mixing, even though everybody was and every race other than whites still is.
Even black people say that all the time. I want to have black kids. I want to raise a black family. I'm black and proud. If black people say that, nobody blinks an eye. But when
that's facts.
Nick says it, people are automatically assuming that it's something racist.
No,
And I think in that context, I think that could be a joke. And I think that if you record any white kids Call of Duty lobby when they're 18 years old, or you record anybody at 3 a.m. when they're not knowing, I've made jokes like that. I make jokes about every single race. It doesn't mean that you're a racist person, but nowadays you have to be very careful at any moment because you never know when someone's going to record.
Well, wait, but so the point is, I'm saying like, so that's the part that wasn't recorded, is I'm saying I'm against race mixing. Well, she sees me saying something that you're not supposed to say and says, I'm going to cancel this guy. So she gets her phone out and starts recording and says, hey, Nick, so do you think that having sex with a black guy is the same as having sex with a dog? So I didn't say that. Those were not my words. I was saying I'm against race mixing.
But did you answer the question and say yes? Because it doesn't matter if you brought up those words, if you do in fact think that race mixing is the same thing as doing it with a dog. And I completely agree with Harley. It's fine to have a preference. It's the way that he's saying it. This is exactly what was said in the very first clip. Let's see if I can, hold on. Let's see if we can pull this without,
It's actually so fucking true. If, like I said to you earlier, it's like if you've got a plan B, then plan A is less likely to like actually succeed. But you're absolutely right. But you've got to consider the fact that there are marriages out there which really shouldn't stay together.
Yeah.
You
Like
know,
what?
for you know, like abusive
Let's
and
see,
really
hold on.
horrific circumstances.
Hold
Then
on.
they got to separate, but not divorce. Can't be on the table. Yeah.
I can't believe you said that.
Extreme cases.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah, like, you know,
If I can't
We're
find
not
it,
talking about exceptions. We're talking about the rule.
yeah, and like that's what I mean. Like I love what he's
That's
saying.
just
there it is. I love what he said.
No, it's such an impractical.
I have a story for you. I have a story. So my grandma,
Okay, maybe she said it already, but it says, I love what you say, but I hate the way that you say it. So let's get rid of this. And yeah, I mean, that's an issue. That's an issue because if your job is to communicate these messages, it doesn't matter if you're right. It doesn't matter if you're right. Going back to Lee's question from like a month ago. In politics, does facts and policy matter more? Or do feelings matter more? And for better or worse, feelings matter more. So if you make people feel a certain way, that's it. They're gonna make they're gonna develop their opinion, and that's it. Jimmy Dean says it's fine to have a preference as long as your name isn't Scott Adams and your preference is the white majority living community. Well, I mean, he's not Scott Adams, but he definitely has the preference of a white majority living community. To be honest, the funniest, most racist joke I know I got from a black woman. Fair enough. Trey says, I wonder what Nick's other side of the family thinks about his ideology and political views. Good question. I have to assume that they think he's just some misguided kid. That what else could you think? There's no way that, like I said, in 10 years, that he's still using the same talking points. If for no other reason that they're not effective, he could be more effective at explaining the fact that he want in the same way, you know, that Sneeko just said, you know, black people do this all the time. Black people want to marry within their race. And it's a big thing that, you know, if a black guy's with a white girl or vice versa, why is that different with white people? That is a good point. Nick never said that. Nick never made that point. So where would this conversation be without Sneeko? When's the last time we were talking about Sneeko like that?
She gets the phone out and frames it that way. And I said,
and you said?
No. I said, no. And Adam, you saw the clip. I said, no, it's not the same. I said, but they both be degenerate. I said, they both be wrong. And then the same way that.
I don't know how I feel about that. It's not the same, but they're both wrong. I don't think that is, I don't think that's him comparing. I still think that's I'm having trouble finding exactly, you know, I definitely disagree, but I'm having trouble finding exactly what is wrong with him holding that position. Good point. Depends on how old Nick's parents are. More old school, one could be surprised, definitely. And I mean, if he's been doing this since he was, what did he say, 16? This stuff didn't come from nowhere. So they might be right there with him.
I would say, yeah, incest is wrong. Is incest the same as bestiality? No. Is rape the same as bestiality? You know, these are all things which I would consider.
Demonetized.
Yeah, and but
Nico just
it's-
hops on board and is basically like, "Oh yeah, it's fucked up." For
I heard him
people to-
explain this whole thing before.
But you
He
think
outlined
race
the-
mixing is bad?
I don't think race mixing is bad, but I respect his opinion to think that he wants to further the white race and have white kids.
See,
I'm not going to judge what he wants to do.
I would have thought in any other timeline that Nick saying like, "Oh, white people should just be with other white people," I would have thought that that would be a super controversial statement. But it's hard for me to really take it that controversially when we've had people like Tariq Nasheed on here who clearly says the same thing about black people. Kevin Samuels basically said the same thing about black people.
People say that all the time. That's the problem. Wasn't that
White people don't say that. White people are not allowed to say that.
Facts.
He just said it.
I would.
Oh, right, and everybody's jumping down his throat. Everybody on there is jumping down his throat, and we're all jumping down his throat. But you have to lay down. If you're not in the frame, they're not going to see how cute you are, and they're not going to pay me. It doesn't matter how hard I work. It's about your cuteness. Sorry. Where were we? Based Nico. Yeah, okay. So Harley said the majority of people tend to stay inside their race. Even mixed people tend to date races they're mixed with. Good point. But to believe your view should be held by everyone is what's wrong. I love that. That is it. That is it, Harley. It's okay for you to have this weird idea, but for you to think that this is how we should all think, that is the problem. Harley nailed it. Thank you, Harley. This is why we keep you around. Just kidding. Just kidding. We love you.
That's why he's canceled. He's on a no-fly list.
It's just hard for me to really take issue with him saying that when I feel like there's so many people of other races who basically say the same thing publicly and aren't really like held in any kind of negative light for it.
I think that's why Nick was saying that it's easier to be a minority nowadays. I think when he talks about that, he's talking about freedom of speech. I think I have a...
So again, Sneeko coming in here, kind of translating what Nick is saying. And if that's what you are trying to say in the term, in the very strict context of, what I was talking about before, where you can make fun of white people in a way that you cannot make fun of any other group. Okay, great. Treated better? Full stop? That's not the same thing.
I'm a protected class, being Asian, black, and white. I'm able to talk about a lot of things and make jokes that Nick is not capable of. But even then, you can still toe the line and get canceled, as we've both been terminated. Right. But, yeah, I still haven't seen you. I disagree. I've heard Destiny bring up that same instance. I'm curious to what do you think Nick has said that's made you think he's a white supremacist? Besides that,
what about the black people's hands should be cut off at the airport?
No, well, I don't mean that.
Like what? How, in what context?
It was part of a joke. It's part of because I'm talking about. Because I'm talking about how
I could get down with racist jokes if they're funny, but hey, you got to be funny.
There was this development where I think it was American Airlines or one of the big airlines said that gay men well, it's not just gay men. It says that men can wear the girls' flight attendant uniform and the girls can wear the male flight attendant uniform. And I said, you look at these videos from World Star or whatever on social media of black people fighting on planes. And, and I don't know, you're going to pretend this doesn't exist, like these videos of black people fighting everywhere at Disney World, at the airport, at restaurants. What's that?
Everybody fights everywhere.
Not like that. Not.
I just seen a white nigga hit someone in the back of the head on a plane.
Nope.
Yeah, come on, Nick.
Nope. You ain't seeing that. And in the type of numbers that's recorded, that there's a World Star. There absolutely is not a white equivalent to that. There absolutely is not a white equivalent to that. I don't think there's an equivalent to that in any race. Am I wrong? Well, give me an alternative to World Star hip hop that is for other another race, another group, anything like that. Tell me what it is. What is it? If you can tell me what it is, I will say I am wrong, you are right. But as of now, that's facts. Yeah, being mixed is a superpower as far as free speech. The fact that I am able, that's why I try to cover, black issues more than, honestly, more than I'm comfortable with, because I don't feel like there's the people who think like me often happen to be white. And they don't have the same leeway that I do because I'm not white. And I have the same ignorance of the black experience from not being black, but definitely a superpower. Trey, if I was right, you would have been, come on now. And Darshan would have, he definitely would have let me get away with this if I was white. Just messing. The Karen public freakouts are not the same thing as World Star Hip Hop. These are individuals who are doing things amongst themselves. This is not a collaborative experience. These are random people, individuals. You don't see brawls of Karens. You don't see mobs of Karens doing public freakouts. You do not see that. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe I'm wrong. If you can show me a website dedicated to mobs of Karens freaking out, then I will shut up.
It happens
There-
everywhere.
yeah, it's not to say that- it's not to
wait a
say
minute,
that
it's
black
not-
people
it's
are
not
the only
just-
people-
It's not just black
Okay.
people. Everybody fights everywhere.
So you're in.
What is knockout game? Is that something I can?
I mean,
It's
listen,
not no denial. It's the truth.
it is denial. It is
It's-
denial. To
so
say
you're
that
saying-
that's
Just
not
like the knockout game, like where you hold your chest in.
Like
So
a
you're
black
saying only
phenomenon.
black people fight at Disneyland and fight in airports and airlines.
I'm saying that
You a
when I go on
statistics guy,
social,
you with the truth, not what you see on social media. Where's the facts? I can show you videos right now where white people, black people, Mexican people, Asian people, everybody's fighting everywhere.
yeah,
They really,
okay. I know everybody fights, but I'm just saying what I
So
see
why
on social
signal-
media.
why-
This is cope. No jumper is coping. Black people have a culture of glorifying violence more than the rest of America. That is just a fact. I don't know how you could argue against that. Trey says World Star has it all. I've definitely seen a room full of white kids yelling World Star while people are doing whatever. A video. How many videos of white people or Asian people or Indian people or Latinos are on World Star versus the number of videos of black people? And let's take it one step further. Let's say how many videos on World Star are not of black people that are of fights that have more than two people, than more than a one-on-one fight. It's not there. It's not there. I'll put my foot in or take my foot out of my mouth, and I will absolutely apologize and say that I'm wrong if I am. But I don't think I am.
I single out.
It happens
black
more
people.
with black people. It happens way more with black people.
See, I came up to the same conclusion before I even knew Nick when they were talking about the Stop Asian Hate Crimes in New York City. And then I talked to every single
Stop Asian hate. Who's hating the Asians? It's been black people forever.
Asian person. And like I went to these protests and it made me really upset. I watched all the videos and the uncomfortable truth was Asians were afraid to talk about how most of the attacks, I would say 90% of them were black people because it's a protected class. You don't want to come off racist. And so they lumped it in and they used the crime statistics, which is hate crime. And hate crime is anything. If you say the word, use a racial slur against an Asian person, that's a hate crime. But the Stop Asian Hate attacks was like when an old Asian lady gets pushed over into the train tracks or an old Asian lady gets punched in the head 40 times. And if you look at what race is doing that, it was black people. And the reason, whatever justification you want to make for it, overall in New York City, there's more bums, there's more homeless people, there's more poor people that are black than other races. And so that's why poor people commit crimes more often.
Again, like he's not wrong. Like we're 14% of the population and we're responsible for 50% of the violent crimes. So he's not wrong. Like we commit violent crimes more than any other race. But I guess where AD point is simply just fighting at Disney World or at an airport. How do you just attribute that to black people?
Well, and this is where tone matters. When I say I want to chop people's hands off, what I said was, you think about airplanes and airport security and it's TSA and everything because of what, Al-Qaeda, 9/11. I said, well, and this is explaining the joke, kind of defeats the point of it. But I said, well, I'd rather have the Taliban run the airlines and cut off the hands of all the black people fighting on the airplanes and put the flight attendants in burqas than have what we have now, the current TSA regime, where you're going to have black people fighting on the plane and then a male flight attendant in high heels is going to go run and break it up. It wasn't an assertion of fact of like, well, we look.
All right, that's kind of funny.
At the data and black people are fighting on airplanes more than anybody, although I presume that's true. I haven't done the research, but I presume that's true. And so that's a joke. And the point is, AD, and I'm a little bit disappointed. If you can't say, like, you know what I'm talking about, if you're going to take umbrage at the fact that I say black people are fighting at the airport in Disneyland and say, well, white people fight too, like, you don't know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. You can be as bad as Nick and still say things that are true. You guys have to remember, we were just watching the conversation I had with Sean's friend Henry the other day in Discord, and how much he hates me simply because of who I am. That is something, that is a blindness that he has. That doesn't mean that he can't say things that are true. That doesn't mean that he can't touch on things that have truth to them. Oh, he says there are more black people on these clips because it's more glorified by black people. Agreed. That, however, doesn't prove who does it more. there could be more white people doing it, but it's not as glorified. Okay, maybe, but until I see evidence of that, then that sounds like hope. Maybe, sure, anything is possible, but seems like in the age of everything being recorded, when we have all these Karen public freakouts, that we would see that.
This is like either dishonest or delusional. I mean, I'm just telling it to you straight up. To say that makes me a racist because I have fucking eyeballs.
Oh, I didn't call you
Twitter.
anything. I'm just saying it's wrong.
Well, you said it was white supremacists. See, both of the instances that you guys brought up were kind of jokes.
You didn't hear white
taken out of
supremacists
context.
come out of my mouth for any
No, that was a question. My question was, can you name something that makes Nick a white supremacist? And both of you brought up jokes that, like, out of context, and the way you're saying it sounds bad, but that's what social media does now. You take things out of context to position somebody in a bad way.
I believe
but that again is Nick's responsibility. It's not the responsibility of somebody who sees an out of context clip to then go search for Nick and see what it did, where did it come from, what did he actually mean. It would be ideal if people did that. It would be ideal if people did that, but they don't. And you know that. If you've been doing this for however many years, you know that. So do better.
I believe that 100%. You're right.
Right. So, and I think that kind of proves what you just brought up. But like, what belief has Nick said that makes you think that he's a racist or a white supremacist?
With the question though, so isn't like again, I may be like severely misinformed. Isn't a white supremacist just like somebody who thinks that white folks are supreme, right?
Yeah.
So the other races. Well, Nick, like, don't you think that white folks are supreme?
No, and I answered that earlier. And the thing is about so-called white supremacy is it has to be a materialist worldview. In my opinion, well, actually, that's not totally true. But as far as white people go, for the most part, you really have to not believe in the soul and believe in God to be a white supremacist. You can't be a Christian. You can't be, which is what most religious white people are.
What?
You can't be a Christian and say that white people are better than other people because Christianity is a universal religion. It says
that makes sense
in the Bible, that neither a Gentile nor Jew. Now, people take that to mean like, oh, that means everybody's equal all the time or something. But it means that we're all Christian. We all have a brotherhood in Christ and we are all equal before God. And
well, Ye certainly thought that not only did it mean that everybody is equal, but that Hitler, he said, especially, we should love everybody, especially him. Christianity gone wrong once again, as it always does. Myron said, Box Swine Mafia, I don't know what that is, doesn't cause the same amount of damage. Even when they go full mad cow mode, I don't know what that means either. Everyone knows, never go full cow mode. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Is that why Jesus and Mary are depicted as white? Yup.
In terms of our soul, for you to say that white people as a race are better than other people, it's like, well, in what sense? Then you'd have to measure it out and attribute supreme value to a particular thing and say, well, if white people are better at something than another group of people, that makes them better as a holistic thing. And that, again, that you have to be non-religious to view it that way. So white supremacy is incompatible with being a Christian. And I'm
okay. So this has brought up, this hoodie's so big. This has brought up a question that I want to ask you guys, and I want you to take I was reminded because of this conversation, but I want you to take it outside the context of this conversation. So when I ask this, I'm going to put a poll. This has nothing to do with race. This has nothing to do with race. I'm taking it outside of anything to do with Nick, anything to do with Sneeko, anything to do with No Jumper, anything to do with Pearl. This is just a question as if I had asked you in, any other context. The question is, are some people better I'll type right now than other people? Are some people better than other people? I really want you guys to answer this. Are some people, and again, it has nothing to do with race. We're not talking about race. We're not talking about Nick. We're not talking about this conversation. This just reminded me of this question, and I'll explain why after. So let me know what you guys think.
I'm Catholic. I am Christian. So
yeah. Now, a better question is, what do you think that white folks are better at, than I guess any other race?
Did you guys see I think it was from The Cut. And they use that same question. Like, what are white people better at? Oppression, taking up space, and guess who's talking about it? All black people.
Better than any other race? Yeah. Well, I would say that every race has their strength. I would say the white people are very good at literature and architecture and philosophy and
Basically everything.
No,
I mean,
he
lots of
didn't
things.
say anything. He didn't talk about dance. He
jump.
didn't talk about culture. He didn't talk about art. He didn't talk about creativity. He talked about pattern recognition.
So you think that the soul of a black person is to be like a great artist or dancer or what?
Basketball player, football
Well,
player.
no, now you're talking about soul. I think that, yeah, I mean, black people are great athletes and they're great artists. And that's not to say that black people can't be other things or do other things.
Are we going to ignore the fact that it's common for black people to have a more athletic build because of the racist breeding that went on during slavery? Are we just forgetting about that now? Are we allowed to say that happened, but it didn't lead to black people being better at athletics? You can't have it both ways. Can't have it both ways.
But we're talking about the strengths
in general. And yeah, I see that this is. I think I just saw the hypocrisy here. See, if we ask AD and your name is Josh.
No, that's Flacco. But
I'm off on Josh. Well, if we ask
Flacco,
if Flacco and AD, if we ask you like, what do you think black people are better at than white people? You would both say dancing, music, basketball, and probably make fun of white people for being awkward. And nobody will get mad. Nobody will get mad at that. Everybody would accept that as a universal truth. That in general, black people are better at music. And then Nick says an honest answer, better at innovation, better at architecture. And then it's like, oh, well, so black people can't do it, right? See, you get offended when Nick is truthful about the white race, but you can be truthful about other races and then nobody blinks an eye.
Hey, I have a question though, right? So, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No. So like when Nick says that white folks are better at innovation, what did that mean?
Well, here's a good example. Asians, if you look at IQ, we talked about IQ earlier. Asians actually outperform whites dramatically on IQ tests and on math tests. And if you look at some of these tests, standardized tests before university. So if you were to say strictly by IQ and by certain tests, you would say actually that Asians are smart. Now, would you call me that? Because I say that, would you call me an Asian supremacist? Would you say that I think that Asians are better than everybody because they have a higher IQ in terms of this metric? When I say whites are more innovative, it's because although Asians have very high IQ and are clearly predisposed to being good at math, I know that's like a stereotype, but it's based on fact. They outperform every other group in math. They're not as innovative. And that has a lot to do with their culture. That has a lot to do with their history. And of course, history and culture are, in fact, bound up with genetics, behavior.
And so the argument that he is making hinges upon all of the systemic racist type of arguments that come from liberals and specifically black people. That there was this systemic racism and that had effects. So you can't have the notion that all of this racist stuff happened to black people, but there was no effects to it. Black people are better at physical tasks. And again, we're not talking about every single black person and every single white person, that every single black person is going to be better than every single white person. That would obviously be ridiculous. If you think that's what's going on, then you're in the wrong place. You're not smart enough to be here. But I don't think any of you that don't. I think we can just understand that, as Harley is listing, these things are just statistical facts based on a balance of probabilities. And there is nothing racist about it. That doesn't mean that Nick's not a racist. I'm just saying the facts that he's stating right now are not racist.
Behavior is bound up with genetics. We say things like the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. What does that mean? Children are like their parents. And there's a question about, is that nature? Is that nurture? It has a great deal to do with nature, more so than many people care to admit. And the point is, so Asians, although you could say in one sense they're smarter, it's better than other groups, they're maybe not as innovative. That's why they steal American technology. That's why they struggle to do a lot of things the Americans do. And so the point is, and I get back to the previous point, all human beings, I believe, have inherent dignity, and they have a soul, and they have a brotherhood and universality and equality before God. But that does not change the fact that there are inequalities between peoples and groups on various different things.
So we, I agree with him there. So we had the poll question: are some people better than other people? So we had one person who said no, and 3 of you who said yes, who agree with me that yes, some people are better than other people. To the person who said no, do you not think that you are a better person than Vladimir Putin, than Nick Fuentes? Do you not think you are a better person than Mussolini was? Or let's just go there, Hitler. The reason this question comes up is because the reason I bring up the question of do you think some people are better than other people? And I just straight out like that, is that is a really good determinant of people who have what aligns better with, may not be liberal, but aligns better with a liberal ideology. To say, no, what? Everybody, that's too complicated. And well, I mean, so maybe in some things, and whereas a more conservative type of mindset, a more, let me back that up. A more collectivist mindset is going to say, well, it's not that simple, and this and that and whatever. Whereas an individualistic mindset is obviously going to be able to see that some people are better than other people. Whether you want to break that down into a certain context or just take the gestalt of who a human being is. If you don't think that you are a better person than Nick Fuentes, then what are we criticizing here? Brown people are better at innovation and technology and scamming your grandma, but hey.
Would you say that because blacks are better athletes, that they're better, they're the best race? Would you say that because Asians are the best at math, that they're the best race? Or because, whites have the finest literature, that they're the best? Who's to say?
Good point.
Hey, those are all material things. Those are all based on, material conditions. If you have a religious view, then we're not just material, we have souls. And so we should be afforded rights and respect and dignity based on the fact that we're all human beings.
And I will say, though, that conversation, it is very weird that that's not a conversation that's really allowed to be had in public. And obviously somebody like Nick, who's been, characterized the way that he has been publicly, him having that conversation, a lot of people are going to reject it or whatever. But like a lot of people have had their careers basically dismantled for just having the nerve to have the conversation about the correlation between race and IQ.
Mm-hmm. All right, I don't want to do that. Let's see what other chapters we have here. Why are you celibate? Oh, and straight into why opinion on white liberals. Perfect.
Why are you celibate?
Well, the easy answer is I am Catholic, so I think it's a sin
to have premarital sex.
Yes.
So you are a virgin at this time?
Yes.
Wow.
So I think that the only morally illicit sex is within marriage, which is how it was for thousands of years.
I'd love to hear what Sneeko has to say on this, because he is exactly what I was talking about with, following right in the Andrew Tate's footsteps of being this very, I guess, modern man in terms of, being materialistic and going after women and not being a virgin until marriage, and then just switching and be like, oh, I'm Muslim now, which is way stricter than any Christian doctrine. Maybe not any Christian doctrine, but the majority of Christian doctrines.
But also I'm just sort of I'm like an eccentric. What you gotta understand about me is I'm like an eccentric genius. Okay, so I mean, not only am I celibate because it's like the right thing to do, but also I'm just not really interested.
He can't connect with bots. He can't connect to normies on that level.
What's that?
No, he's anti-porn.
No, I'm anti as well.
You don't need porno until I beat your dick, though.
So you're on permanent semen retention mode?
Well, I want to get married eventually.
So you're saving all your jizz for your future wife?
That's right. Yeah. Well,
I'm saving all my jizz for you.
Nick, how old are you?
I have kids. I'm 24.
I knew it.
Oh, he's a kid.
That's what I couldn't believe when he said that he was 18, saying that thing about the white woman fucking the dog, being like fucking the black guy. Like, he's got white power in his fucking veins, bro. Like, he knew from a young age. That's kind of like I think a lot of people.
I'm thinking he's fucking 37 years old. And
That's why that's why I was bringing up the notion about his parents and with the question about how his family feels. If you're talking that way at 18, like you heard that from somewhere. You heard that from somewhere. You don't just come up with stuff like that on your own at 18. I mean, maybe, but probably some racist uncles in there.
He was a college student causing havoc. That's how he became famous.
He's like a Nazi whiz kid. It's crazy.
I'm not a Nazi.
Come on,
ish, like in that ballpark.
Right?
I'm a nice guy. And the thing is, and I put this on my Telegram. I want what's right for the country. I want to tell the truth, and the truth is uncomfortable. Believe me, I wish I could be a liberal, because liberalism has a lot of nice promises.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and that would be very easy for me to be a liberal. I was a libertarian when I was in high school, but I just realized the world is a certain way, and I wish it weren't that way. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but inequality is baked into the cake. That's sad. It's tragic in a lot of ways, but that's a human condition. And I think that the answer is compassion. The answer is compassion and understanding and respect and love for people. But we have to tell the truth, because
you have compassion and love for people. Doesn't sound like it. Sounds like you don't necessarily have hate for people, but I don't know that you would. I would characterize you as having love and compassion for people. Maybe that's just me.
The world is going crazy right now. The world's going to shit. Things are obviously declining. And the only way that we're going to turn it around is if we have some common sense and just call it what it is. And sometimes that makes people uncomfortable and it sounds a certain way. And I know I'm belligerent. I can be belligerent, can be offensive sometimes. And
we need to follow God overall. Everything is better aligned if we follow God. Nick, I just left Adam 22's studio, and that dude has a lot of Satan shit up in there, man. You got to go ahead and
he's I have one little like Satan head statue that somebody.
He has one Satan head statue on his desk. He's got a Satan little doll behind it.
Somebody sent that to me. Right?
Your
opinion on white liberals.
On white liberals, I believe that they're our number one enemy.
You're like repeating his talking points back at him.
Who, Nick?
And it just sounds like, yeah, you are. It sounds less racist. No one's gonna call you a Nazi for saying the same shit that Nick said.
I've never heard Nick say that. Go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Bro, yeah, because I would say it's Jews. I wouldn't say it's white liberals.
No.
It's white liberals.
Haram.
Show for show, man. White liberals are definitely the devil.
Here's why, though, because if you look at white liberals, at least
let's just put it out there. I do not stand by that comment.
The radical, and when we're talking about white, I mean white. ACLU and other left-wing groups, they used to defend free speech. If you look at like ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, they're a left group, but they defended the skinheads in Skokie, Illinois, when the neo-Nazis or the Ku Klux Klan wanted.
As they should have, because in America we have free speech, and free speech is not there for the speech that you like; it's there for the speech that you hate.
To a parade.
Yeah, they switched their whole shit up, and nobody fucking talks about it. Yeah.
Not that I support that, obviously, but it's like they were left and they defended free speech, and now they're not like that anymore. The urge for censorship is really coming from the Jewish left, and it's not to say that there aren't white. There obviously are white liberals that are hopped up on that too, and I'd agree with you. Yeah, I mean they're imperialists, they're tyrants. You know, they're trying to impose their way of life, but
I genuinely do not understand where this comes from. Like, I get that there is a smaller population of Jewish people and a larger, I guess, a proportion of Jewish people who are in positions of like banks and Hollywood and stuff like that. But he was just talking for how long about how people like to be around their own kind and this and that and the. Why is it okay for you as a white person to do it, and you agree that it's okay for black people to do it and want it, but then when it comes to Jewish people, what's the difference? What's the difference?
I think a lot of it does.
So we're supposed to just accept that the Jews are tyrants who want to change our way of life?
They are. I mean, they are.
What do they want to change our way of life?
Are they though?
To
it liberal, international.
No, hold on. Say it again, Sneeko. Sorry.
Huh?
Say that again, please. Sorry.
I said they want to further a globalist agenda. They want to continue their power, and they want to keep most of the wealth for themselves.
Who doesn't?
Globalism.
Who doesn't want to keep their wealth to themselves? This is such a dumb line. Who wants
benefits the Jews?
Shit, yeah. Hey man.
I mean, again, I need a fact check because I'm not prepared to debate that particular part of this argument. But
all right, I thought this was gonna be a little.
I hope I don't. What are they gonna take now?
All right,
no, for sure. I just feel like I should be able to offer some kind of rebuttal to that, but I don't really know. I'm not.
All right, so let's just go to the most replayed part here, and then we'll call it quits. Oh, Sneeko's gone. Let's see what Sneeko's parting words are, and then we'll go to that.
That part might have to get censored, which is a real shame because then where does that content go? Maybe that goes on.
I'm glad we skipped it.
The No Jumper Rumble.
Yeah, I would put some of it on Patreon, but yeah, it's gonna get taken down. Everything that I had with Nick got removed or got me strikes and stuff like that.
Really?
So genuine point. If you want to keep up your channel, I would be careful.
Does Destiny make you be careful about what you'll talk about when you stream with him? He won't let you.
No, Destiny's fine because Destiny's a federal, he's a Fed agent liberal, so he's able to say whatever he wants with Nick because he disagrees with them. So they want you to disagree with Nick. They don't. If you agree with him at any point. Right now, I see you guys listening to him. Oh, Nick's making some good points. That's gonna get you in trouble. If you call him a Nazi for the rest of the show, we can stay up. But I got
Nick Fuentes is a Nazi.
What do you think?
You're good, protected. I gotta go. Thanks for having me on.
Do you think that?
All right, so that was his last piece. Let's just go into this last piece here, the most replayed part of the podcast, and then heading over to Discord. Again, guys, it is free to join. It is free to join. I think everybody here is already in there anyway, but it's free to join. Link in the description. That's where the real party is.
Or we have a gene in us to commit more crimes. Was your logic correct?
Well, let's
back up a little bit.
Evidence for that throughout the case. That well, you're just trying to help people and how to make things better. You're not doing people any favors by saying, well, they just are a victim of circumstance or something like this. So, because I agree with you, those things are all adverse, obviously, but nobody will hear out the case that maybe we're not all starting from the same place to begin with, which I think there's a lot of evidence for that.
So you're saying genetically black people are more angrier, or we have a gene in us to commit more crimes. Was your logic correct?
Well, it's that they're more antisocial and a higher incidence of sociopathy, and on average lower IQ. And you look at the societies that Africans form elsewhere. I think it bears this out. People look at Africa. Africa is a total disaster. It's a total dump. Sub-Saharan Africa.
How are you gonna say that? We have most of the vast resources from Africa.
It was also colonized by everybody.
Yeah,
in Europe
they're taking everything from that.
Well, exactly, they're taking it. Harley says it's because Jews don't believe in Jesus and their occupation in Israel. That's their issue. Oh, now I get it. Now I get it.
Okay. So, people look at the state of Africa today, which is just unmitigated disaster, and they say, well, that's because of colonialism. Well, when the colonialism didn't begin until in the interior of Africa until the late 19th century. It wasn't until the late 19th century when there was this big scramble to colonize Africa. And when we arrived there, they didn't have written language. They didn't have two-story buildings. They didn't have complex societies. Like there's no real good record of African history other than what the Muslims or the Christians wrote in Northern Africa around the sort of West Coast, because they didn't have writing. And I don't say that to be ignorant. I don't say that to be funny. I'm not saying that to be a jackass. I'm saying that to mean, this is the state of development of that continent, of that people. And so in a sense, it's almost cruel then that you bring these people over into Europe, you bring Africans into Europe or in America, and then they're underperforming, and it turns into, oh, well, it's the government, it's the programs, it's this or that. It's like, well, the level of development wasn't very high to begin with. And I say that with compassion. I don't say that to be condescending. I say that with compassion. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it was. And, you can't blame the government for the fact they didn't develop written language in thousands of years.
All right. So that was the lead up. We're getting into the most replayed part. Well, let's see what he's got for us.
I wish I had a better counter argument to that. I'm sure there is one, but I'm not really.
He's not wrong though.
I'm not really sure how to debate that.
The black guy said he's not wrong, so he's not wrong.
You love to just latch on to whatever he says, though.
No, listen.
Flacco
I'm actually African. Listen, I'm actually African.
Flacco doesn't like black people,
right? Like I'm actually African, and he's not wrong.
Do you think there's something like inherently fucked up about African people?
No.
Maybe fucked up isn't the words to use here, but
no. Right? Again, if you take people who are, let's say, uncivilized, and bring them here and put, let's say, like an IQ test in front of them, like they'll probably do poorly on it, right? So, right, again, just by default, currently, like we are somewhat be behind the 8 ball, right? Again, like acknowledging those truths, like don't mean it's like it's currently hatred, right? And like he's telling the truth, right? As somebody who's African, I can tell you, we're currently uncivilized.
But even like the fact that he has such an interest in it is obviously part of his overall platform, being that white people are essentially superior to black people, right?
Do you feel white people are superior to black people?
Still no. I don't believe that, because I think that. Well, and I use this as an example. Like Kanye is my hero, and he was my hero before he put on the MAGA hat, before he started talking about the media and everything.
What's your favorite album?
The God stuff.
My favorite album is Life of Pablo.
All right, favorite song of Life of Pablo.
30 Hours or Father Stretch My Hands.
Let me get a verse right now.
That is a good album.
Let me get a verse. I give you all the verses. I can name 200 Kanye songs. I know all his albums. I know all the words to it. I have Yeezy in my closet. I have a lot of it because it's expensive, but I'm a fan, and I consider him one of the greatest geniuses alive right now. If he told me to go work for him, I would say yes, sir, Mr. West. Like I would go. How could you?
We all saw how that turned out, right?
It's possible. I would be at all surprised.
Absolutely, yeah. At this point,
24 though, right? Like I feel
he's a kid.
Right, but like folks kind of forget, like he grew up on Kanye,
right?
Yeah, fair. I did. Yeah, I grew up on him, and the thing is,
this was the most replayed
it's got nothing
part?
to do with interpersonal relationships. I get along with black people, with people of other races. I have a lot of friends like that. Because what people always say is if you talk this way, that means that you hate other people, and you hate other people because they're different. They look different. They are different. And I hope, maybe you guys don't believe me, but I hope it's coming across that that's not the basis of my worldview. It never has been. Like I said, I lived my entire life not really believing any of this or understanding any of this. And then I just read books, and I looked at some things, and I did some thinking on it, and I realized that this is why the world is the way it is. It's because genetics are very real. That's part of it. And that racial identity is salient, meaning it's important to people. It doesn't change the fact. It doesn't mean I treat people differently. It doesn't mean I look down on people or anything like that. I have love for people, but it's just we want to make sense of the world and inequality. globalization is forcing lots of different kinds of people to live together, and we're having to come face to face with human inequality of all kinds. You go on TikTok.
That's a good point too.
And this is one example. You'll scroll through TikTok, and one guy will be famous on TikTok, a guy or a girl, because they're just beautiful. You have like a hot girl, or you have a Chad guy, and then you'll scroll up and you'll see someone famous on TikTok because they're like deformed, because they're literally like they've got some issue, or you'll see someone with roaches on their walls. And it's like communications, technology, all these things is forcing us to come face to face with severe, objective, immovable human inequality. And it's very uncomfortable and disturbing for people because we like to believe that we like to ignore that. We have this sort of self-help culture where it's like, you can be whatever you want. You can overcome anything. And we're being confronted with the fact that that's not true.
And you though?
Some things are just predisposed because of genetics. Some people have a longer lifespan or shorter. Some people be tall or short physically. Die young or die old due to genetic disease factors. Some people be successful or unsuccessful because of their IQ. And
so I think we get a good idea of who this guy is, where he's coming from, and what does he really think, and how bad is he? So with this final poll here, 100% of you said that he should not be censored. And I completely agree, because as bad as, even if he was 10 times worse than he actually is, and we've seen that he's pretty bad, like he's pretty out there. But at the end of the day, the logic is internally consistent. I don't agree with the conclusions, but they do make sense if you follow that logic. And I think we need people like that to have these ideas be out in the zeitgeist or whatever. And whether it's because we want to debunk it, or because we want to explore the nuances and say like, okay, that part's a little much, but this part actually, is true. Much like we saw in this conversation. I think that is a very, very healthy thing for political discourse in general. We need to be able to hear bad ideas. He was just talking about being faced with human inequalities and all that stuff. And a lot of that has to do with intelligence. It has to do with perspective. It has to do with a lot of different things. And having these conversations is what allows us to leave the bad ideas behind and jump off the good ideas. I mean, yeah, I agree with you guys. Charlie says that would have been a great point about immigration. Bring in people from underdeveloped countries and expect them to perform to the same standards. That's a great, great point. And this is the kind of thing that, without Nick saying it, this is why people think he is worse than he is. He needs to be able to do this. He needs to be able to take his own ideas, his own points, and articulate them in a way that not everybody who comes across him says, I hate the way that you say things, but sometimes you say some decent things. I goes on to say, Nick's issue is not his point of view. It's how he articulates it. He needs to learn how to speak better. Exactly. And unfortunately, he is somebody who, in the grand scheme of things, is good at articulating how he feels. If you look at just people in general, they're not even that good. Sit on that for a while. We got Jess in the building right at the end. Welcome to the party. We are about to head over to Discord. I hope we will see you over there. But we definitely went over some crazy stuff. So definitely check out the replay if you didn't catch the whole thing. I really think we dug into some things that not a lot of people are willing to dig into. Yep, you missed them all. You missed the whole thing. We are winding down and heading over. With that said, I want to give a big thank you to the Uncle Junior Network for sponsoring the stream. Thank you so much. And of course, as always, Indie Film also helping out the channel. And big thank you to every single one of you guys who popped in, whether it was for a second or the average view duration of 22 minutes and 22 seconds. Does that mean anything? I don't know. Maybe. I just know that I love you guys. I love doing this. I love partying with you guys. I hope you guys do as well. So once again, thank you so much for partying with me. I've been your host, Lunch, aka the Indian Jesus. Here. Oh, Jesus. Hold on. I'm not ready. Okay. Take two. here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, or in 30 seconds when you see me in Discord, I am out of here. Peace.